Good morning, everyone. My name is Andy Clon, and I'm the acting head of the European Commission representation in Ireland. I'm delighted to welcome you this morning to the Model Council of the European Union 2021 debate. This is an annual event organized by the European Commission representation in Ireland in conjunction with our good friends at the European Parliament Office. The Model Council comprises teams from 27 secondary schools, each representing one of the 27 EU member states. The theme of this year's debate could hardly be more topical. Schools will discuss a coordinated EU response to serious cross-border health threats. We're looking forward to a lively exchange of views. For those watching online today who would like to contribute to the discussion, the social media hashtags for the event are Model Council, one word, and Health Union, one word. Now, speaking of debate and discussion, I'd like to briefly draw your attention to the launch just this week of a new online EU platform called futureu.europa.eu, which is linked to the Conference on the Future of Europe. You can find the right website through the European Commission's representations website. This conference is an incredible opportunity to have your say on the future direction of the EU on topics like climate change, European democracy, migration, and indeed health issues. This will all contribute to the Conference on the Future of Europe, which will be officially launched next month, with the goal of deciding where Europe should be heading in the next few years. But now back to today's event. I would like to pay tribute to all the students and all the teachers who have worked so hard to prepare for today's debate. I would also like to thank EU member state ambassadors for their support. Over the last few weeks, many ambassadors have been in touch with the schools representing their countries to provide guidance and encouragement to the students. Today's debate will be chaired by Martina Fitzgerald. Martina is the CEO of Scale Ireland, an independent not-for-profit organization that represents Ireland's tech startup and scale-up companies. Martina will, of course, also be familiar to many of you as she is a former political correspondent with RTE. Our debate judges today are Noel O'Connell, Executive Director of the European Movement Ireland, and Mary McCaughey, Head of Information and Communication at the European Foundation for the Improvement of Living and Working Conditions, also better known as Eurofound. Once the judges announce the winning teams later on today, Grace O'Sullivan, who is a member of the European Parliament for the South constituency, will announce the prizes. Now, before I introduce Minister Byrne, we would like to take a screenshot with all 27 schools, so please get ready. If I can ask all students now to raise their member state flag for a moment and just hold it there for 5 seconds, and I'll give you a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thanks very much. I would now like to introduce the Minister of State for European Affairs, Thomas Byrne, who will formally open the debate. Thomas Byrne was first elected to the Dáil in 2007. He was elected to the Seanad in 2011 and was re-elected to the Dáil in 2016. From 2016 to 2020, he served as the Fianna Fáil spokesperson on education. He was appointed as Minister of State for European Affairs last year. Minister Byrne, over to you.
Thank you very much, Andy, and I'm really delighted to be here today with all the students and teachers, yourself and the judges and the chair to open this Model Council of the European Union. I'd like to thank you particularly, Andy, and the European Commission representation in Ireland for the work in organising the event in conjunction with the European Parliament Office. It's great to see it going ahead, albeit virtually. And glad to see MEP Grace O'Sullivan on the call as well. I know also we have a number of ambassadors online, and I'd like to thank all of the ambassadors for the help that they've given to the various schools in respect of today's event. I wish to acknowledge also, as I mentioned, the judges, Noel O'Connell from the European Movement Ireland and Mary McCaughey from the European Foundation for the Improvement of Living and Working Conditions. Most importantly, I want to acknowledge all the students participating in the Model EU Council and your teachers as well, because to get involved in events like this requires a certain amount of organisation, a certain amount of initiative, and I think all of your schools have shown that. And it's not the first time I'll have seen some of your schools as well in various events, which I think stands to the credit of the school and the students over the years in getting involved in various events of this type. But I'd also like to acknowledge as well the work that your teachers are doing in general and that you are doing as students during this pandemic. It's been really, really difficult this past year and more for students and for teachers in particular. But I think through it all, I think you've all done extraordinary work, and that's proven today by doing this extracurricular activity. And I do want to acknowledge that there's been incredible sacrifice made by students and by teachers, and that is appreciated very, very much. So you're taking up an exciting challenge today. Taking part in negotiations at the heart of the European Union is not an easy task, and countries will win some and lose some. It requires a knowledge of different cross-cutting policy areas: climate, agriculture, science, technology, and health. You need to be able to understand various points of views of different people and member states, but also within your own country as well, because within your own country there'll be different views, and then you as a government have to represent those views and then negotiate with other member states who have different views from you, and the same dynamics at play back home too. So quite often you have to accept that you won't achieve all that you hope for, but that's natural. Debating virtually is a skill in itself, and I'm unfortunately getting to know that very, very well. As Ireland's Minister for European Affairs, part of my job is to attend the monthly meetings of the 27 EU ministers who attend what's known as the General Affairs Council, normally in Brussels, sometimes in Luxembourg, but pretty much all of these meetings, bar two since I was appointed, including this week, are also virtual. This is something we're all learning together. And I would say this, that the virtual engagements are not the same. They certainly have their advantages, and I think we may not see as many physical meetings into the future, but I think there is nothing like meeting people and discussing issues with them, and maybe that moves your position forward, or in any negotiation that you can both come to a mutually agreed position. So I'm aware today that you're representing the health ministers of each of the EU member states, and that you're negotiating a new regulation to tackle cross-border health threats. I'm looking forward to hearing what you come up with. So I know that you've been working hard to prepare for today. Many of you have been in contact with embassies and ambassadors of the member states you're representing today. So I've seen some great social media posts from schools over the last few days. It looks like you're really well prepared, and you know, Gurmila Mahagup to the ambassadors on that as well. The kind of preparation and motivation to represent your EU country to the best that you can, to fight your corner to effect change, very accurately mirrors the real work of the European Union Council of Ministers. I can tell you that Noel and Mary will have a very hard task in front of them as your judges. Before I hand over to Martina, who will chair today's proceedings, I thought I might share some insights with you on the EU's current approach to health policy and to the pandemic. Under the EU treaties, health is a national competency, which means that member states are pretty much responsible for delivering healthcare services within their own countries. EU does have health policy, but that reinforces our own health system and can make us stronger in the face of crisis like we're now experiencing with the pandemic. But we see the interaction between Irish and EU health policy at the moment, where it's a national competence but there's EU influence. We see that very starkly this week with the issue of the Johnson & Johnson authorization. So the European Medicines Agency has authorized Johnson & Johnson, but it is a national competence as to whether we have Johnson & Johnson in our own country and under what conditions. And NIAC, the National Immunisation Advisory Committee, is doing its work on that for the government here to make a decision. But I think you will see from some of the media commentary that some people don't see that as satisfactory. They cannot understand why an EU body has approved this, but an Irish body has yet to decide. And that's simply because of what I've just said. And as you all know, that health is a national competence. So again, it shows you in practical terms where that clash is happening to our benefit or to our disadvantage. I'll let you decide that. So we do support the goal of enhancing the European Union's ability to respond to pandemics in order to make us better prepared for the inevitable future health crisis. We are actively participating in discussions at EU level relating to the proposals for the creation of a health union to strengthen our health security framework. That's why I'm very keen to hear what you all come up with today. The vaccine strategy adopted by the Commission and Member States is a positive example of EU collaboration, ensuring that we get safe and effective vaccines against COVID-19. While the rollout hasn't been perfect, EU leaders have accepted that and recognise the need to do much better. But whatever the nature of the EU rollout, if we were doing this on our own, haggling or negotiating on our own with these companies, I honestly think we'd be in a much worse position. So current EU cooperation respects the need for flexibility on national public health measures deemed necessary by member states to control the spread of disease, while also providing a network to develop coordination. So I encourage you to think about positive areas for cooperation, but tough decisions will have to be made. We've made tough decisions on travel. Some of you will be representing countries on the mandatory hotel quarantine list. I would say to you as health ministers that we haven't introduced our mandatory hotel quarantine lightly, and we've only done it on the basis of scientific advice. These are temporary measures that are extraordinarily restrictive and cannot last forever. In fact, the legislation runs out in June. One of the things that's being negotiated at the moment at the EU Council, well, we just concluded our negotiation on the digital green certificate. You'll see you'll see that in the media this week, and that type of haggling has happened over the last few weeks. Is exactly what you will be doing today in the Model Council. So look today as a way to work together to find common ground. Also to recognise as well that this, you're representing a country, and those like me who do represent a country at the Council of Ministers, it is a huge honour, but it is also the expression of Irish sovereignty that we're there at the top table making rules, because quite frankly, if we weren't part of the European Union, if we weren't sitting at the Council of Ministers, we would probably have to implement quite a lot of the laws anyway. And that's already done in a formal way in respect of countries like Norway, who take a lot of our single market legislation without having any say on it. So I hope you enjoyed today. And I really echo what Andy said about the Future EU website and the Conference of the Future of Europe. Schools in Ireland can just organise their own events and register them on that website. So have a look around. It's going to be really, really interesting. We'll be doing stuff from a national level as well, involving schools and young people too, but it includes everybody. It's available in Irish and in English, and I think it's really good. So look, thanks to everyone again. Look, it's as well I'm not a judge, because I know Dunshaughlin School and my own constituencies there, and I've spoken to students in that school. I know Miss Lockery very, very well as well, and indeed a lot of my constituents attend Maynooth Post-Primary too. So as I said, it's just to wish them luck from a constituency point of view, but I think wish you all luck and really to benefit from the debate today as well. The very fact that you're here at this, I think, is an incredible testament to all of you. And Gura Míle Maith with Galera, and I look forward to the debate today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Thomas Byrne. And now, without any further ado, let me hand over to our chairperson of the day, Martina Fitzgerald. Martina, over to you.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Minister, as well, for both of your insights into how a policy is debated, negotiated, and how there are collaborations at EU level. I'm going to get straight down to business. I'm really delighted to be chairing this morning's virtual Council of the European Union, during which your secondary schools will be representing the 27 EU member states. And this morning, you will be debating a mock regulation of the European Parliament and of the Council. And that is to provide increased responsibilities to the Health Security Committee in order to enforce a coordinated response at EU level to serious cross-border threats to health. So it's a very relevant issue today. Now, the first part of the debate will run until 10:15, and each school will be given 1 minute to make their opening statements on the proposal. Each school will speak according to the order of the list provided to everyone, which starts with Slovenia and France and ends with Portugal. And I would like to advise everyone to keep to the 1 minute that has been allocated to your school for this section of the debate. And to help you, there will be an on-screen timer. Now, I would also like everyone to keep their microphones on mute and then to unmute them when you're speaking. Your microphones will also be controlled centrally. So if you forget to mute after speaking, it will be done for you. And the very best of luck to everyone. This is really great opportunity for everyone to speak on an important and relevant issue at a very critical time. So enjoy it. Now, without further ado, we have a lengthy debate this morning, and I would like to start proceedings and ask Slovenia, which is represented by Skerries Community College, to make their opening statement. Slovenia.
The government of Slovenia is fully prepared to take up its role in the second half of this year of the presidency of the Council of the EU. As outlined in the Declaration of Activities of the Republic of Slovenia and EU institutions from 2021 to 2024, we are deeply strengthening and increasing the effectiveness of EU institutions. We therefore agree with the proposed regulation. However, when dealing with international challenges of this nature, it is important that the European response is coordinated at the appropriate level, but also implemented at the most appropriate level. And in line with the long-established subsidiarity principle, we believe that the most appropriate level from the majority of these actions is at the level of the member state. And we encourage the committee, when appropriately constituted, to consider all of its activities in light of this core European principle. We look forward to today's discussions around this important piece of legislation. Thank you.
And thank you, Slovenia and Skerries Community College, which is participating in this competition for the very first time. Thank you. Now we're moving on to France and to St. Joseph's Secondary School in Rush. France.
As health ministers representing the member state of France, we're in favour of more coordination at EU level in order to tackle cross-border health crises such as the COVID-19 pandemic. As for the findings from the public opinion in the EU of time of coronavirus crisis 3, 64% of respondents surveyed in France agree that the EU should have more competencies to deal with coronavirus pandemic. We feel as though the increased powers of the Health Security Committee mentioned in Article 6 of the proposal do not go far enough, however, as there is no mention of a solution to a future health crisis in the format of medical and vaccine regulations for the EU member states. The current isolation and quarantine requirements of some EU member states disrupts the solidarity and free travel expected of European nations. Therefore, the establishment of the Health Security Committee and its representatives from each member state is necessary to reinstate solidarity and consistency of regulations with the nations present today.
And thank you, France, for your opening statement. And again, this is the first time that your school is taking part in this event. So well done. Now we're moving on to Czechoslovakia and St. Mary's College in Arklow. So over to you, Czechoslovakia.
Speaking on behalf of Czech Republic, we believe the EU should not have coordinated responses to serious cross-border threats to health. The closing of our borders has greatly impacted our economy. We have experienced the 5th highest exposure to global demand shocks among OECD member states. Our economy has showed signs of slowing even before the COVID-19 outbreak, leaving our country at pre-disadvantage. We think that to expect us to endure under the same border restrictions as other more financially stable countries is unjust and neglective of our distinct circumstances and needs. We think we should be responsible for seeing fit what border restrictions should be put in place to fit the best interest of our people's health and the economy of our country. Having an EU-level coordinated response is giving the same dosage to patients at completely different stages of recovery. We believe it is each individual state's responsibility and right to have control over matters that are involving and will be affecting their own country. Thank you.
And thank you to the Czech Republic. And you have an honourable mention back in 2019, and we wish you well on this occasion as well. That was St. Mary's College. We're now moving to Sweden, and that is represented by Kloster Kilmonthon from Wicklow Town. And I hope I pronounced that correctly. And over to you, to Sweden.
Chairperson, adjudicators, fellow delegates, we the delegation from Sweden will have to disagree with this proposal in its current form. In particular, we disagree with the handing over of power to a centralized European Health Committee in areas such as the imposing of curfews. Recent months have shown us that when the European Union attempts to coordinate large-scale actions on short notice, the results can be less than satisfactory. Take, for example, the EU vaccine strategy, the results of which have been described as disastrous and have left Sweden purchasing vaccines from our close friends in Norway. The EU has not proven itself fully capable of handling a vaccine strategy, so Sweden cannot support giving it more power to deal with other health crises. This proposal would award the European Health Committee the ability to impose curfews, mandatory face masks, and other legal requirements, all with a simple majority vote. Sweden finds this deeply troubling as it would directly interfere with our pandemic response. My fellow delegates, one size does not fit all, and we thank you for listening, and we look forward to this debate.
And thank you, Sweden. And also that you have had a very proud record. Your school has had a very proud record at this competition with honourable mentions in 2018 and 2019. So the best of luck to you today. We're moving on to Spain and Mercy College in Sligo Town. And can we now hear from you and your opening statement? Spain.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mia Byrne, and myself and my teammate are delighted to be speaking on behalf of Spain this morning. Initially, I would like to state that this regulation does not have the support of the Spanish government. Spain cannot have external powers dictate domestic policy combating a fatal health threat when the power in question has no personal view of the economic and geopolitical conditions of our nation. We, as the Spanish government, reserve the right to impose potentially economically crippling restrictions according to our own priorities and prerogatives. We cannot subject the Spanish citizens to restrictions of their civil liberties by an external power. In the current COVID-19 pandemic, we as a country have seen tensions rise and fall due to health restrictions, and our economy has suffered significantly, with tourism being one of the main cornerstones both socially and fiscally. In the event of another serious health threat such as this, Spain should and will be able to make its own decisions with regard to the health of our people and the prosperity of our sovereign state. Thank you.
And thank you, Spain. And this is your first time, your school's first time taking part in this competition. So well done for making your debut. Now we're moving on to Belgium and King's Hospital School in course here in Dublin. And it's over to you, Belgium.
Distinguished guests, fellow delegates. My name is Sinead Farrell, and with my partner Ibrahim, we will be representing Belgium. As a deeply European country, Belgium has always supported increased cooperation between member states. And in a world becoming increasingly interdependent and increasingly endangered, cooperation and unity have never been so important. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the dangers of a divided and inconsistent response to cross-border threats to health. A massive disparity in case numbers and death tolls between member states, and completely different approaches to public safety measures. Increasing the powers of the Health Security Committee and coordinating a Europe-wide response to future health crises is essential in protecting the safety of the lives and livelihoods of our people, all of our people. We need to work together as the European Union to protect Europe. Thank you.
And thank you, Belgium. And again, you have had an honourable record in this competition in 2020 and in 2019. And thank you very much for participating this morning. We're moving on to Hungary and Killorglin Community College. And we want to hear from you and your opening statement.
Good morning. We Hungary are against the proposal that is presented for us today. We agree that the EU should have more responsibilities, but there are some points in the proposal which we don't agree with. For example, we think that the increased powers of the Health Security Committee, as mentioned in Article 6, aren't appropriate. We think it would be better in some circumstances to coordinate it on a more local level. We feel that every country should have their own way of tackling the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
And thank you for your contribution. We appreciate that. And everybody is keeping within their times. We really, really appreciate that. That doesn't happen in reality. We're now moving on to Poland and Maynooth Post-Primary School. Over to you, Poland.
Dzień dobry, fellow delegates. Poland welcomes this discussion on increased coordination in responding to cross-border health threats between member states. As we meet under these fragile conditions today, we must note our appreciation for the Union in supporting national health systems, especially with the measurements taken to ensure equal access to a safe and effective vaccine. However, we are reluctant to grant full authority to the Health Security Committee. We believe that each member state requires unique responses according to their circumstances. Blanket measurements would only increase complications, as the one-size-fits-all approach evidently does not work, as we have seen between Northern Ireland and the Republic. There have been difficulties in sharing important data on COVID-19, which shows that coordinating a common response and implementing consistent measures between areas is very difficult. We invite increased collaboration between member states on adequate responses to serious cross-border health threats. However, we remain cautious conferring more competences to EU institutions.
Thank you very much, Poland. And your school, Maynooth Post-Primary School, has a very, very strong record in this competition. An honourable mention last year, second place in 2019, first place in 2018, and second place in 2017. So no pressure, but well done. And we're moving on to Denmark and to Step Aside, Educate Together Secondary School. Over to you for your opening statement.
Esteemed delegates and council members, Denmark votes against the proposal as it sees no reason to give up a portion of its sovereignty to assist battling an issue that Denmark can resolve by relying on its own healthcare systems. Denmark has proved proficient in the handling of this healthcare disaster, therefore it does not deem the assistance from external sources in the face of future possible healthcare crises necessary. Denmark strongly believes this because of statistics regarding the treatment and spread of the COVID-19 virus in Denmark. Due to Denmark's effective containment strategies, it thinks that it can handle containment strategies for future healthcare crises accordingly as a sovereign nation. In comparison to other nations, Denmark has handled the virus exceedingly. Denmark's excellent containment of the virus is why it is not in favor of the legislation presented by the EU. Tak og farvel.
Thank you very much, Denmark. And this is the first time that your school is participating in this competition, and well done to you this morning, and you're very welcome. We're now moving on to Cyprus and to Christ King Secondary School. Over to you, Cyprus.
Honourable Chair, esteemed judges, fellow ministers, good morning. Cyprus fully supports the proposal for providing increased responsibilities to the Health Security Committee. In the words of Henry Ford, coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success. Cyprus believes that in today's globalized world, no single nation can face a crisis like the current one without strengthened coordination in the EU. It is essential that the EU has a more active role in protecting the health of our citizens. The fragmented efforts of member states in tackling serious cross-border health threats has left all of us collectively more vulnerable. However, Cyprus would like to propose an amendment to the regulation that each country is given flexibility to deal with their own unique situation, such as the ceasefire line in our country. This is a significant opportunity for all of us here today, representing the needs of our countries as health ministers, to rethink the role that public health should play in the European Union.
Thank you very much, Cyprus, for the motion, and also your school has a very long record in participating in this event. We are now moving on to home territory, to Ireland, which is represented by St. Farnan's Post-Primary Secondary School in County Kildare. Over to you.
The acknowledged father of the European coal and steel community, Robert Schuman, declared that when it comes to the future of Europe, no effort is too much and no dream is too bold. Thankfully, the community of nations has grown from the initial partnership between 6 countries to 27 countries today, and Ireland is proud about our participation in the European Union since 1973 and the breadth of influence and leadership we have shown during our membership. The trust that we, the Irish people, place in the EU is well founded. As one of the smaller EU member states, we are secure in the knowledge that we will benefit from all advantages of being part of this bigger union of nations. To conclude, Madam Chairperson and fellow delegates, the EU's theme for the current programme is #StrongerTogether, which we would like to compare to a phrase in our own language. Níneart de Cur Céile, there is no strength without unity. And so this morning, Ireland strongly supports the motion that we bolster the EU Health Security Committee in order to enforce a coordinated response at EU level to serious cross-border threats to health.
Thank you very much, and thank you for representing the host country. We're now moving on to Lithuania and St. Augustine's College in Dungarvan. Over to you, Lithuania.
Today I speak before you on behalf of Lithuania to strongly affirm our belief that this motion, as it is now, will have a positive impact not only for Lithuania, but for the European Union as a whole. We have seen throughout the course of this global pandemic the consequences of disunity within the EU regarding COVID measures, with wildly varying measures taken, endangering the safety of citizens in the European Union. This motion ensures we will have a clear, strong, and united response that will ensure the best possible measures will be implemented as soon as there is notification of a potential event occurring. It will also ensure clear and open dialogue between the health services of Europe. This is crucial, especially in this day and age, with the growing threat of AMR and superbugs occurring. It is essential we take action and move forwards together for a more protected and safer Europe for all. Thank you for listening.
And thank you very much, Lithuania. And your school previously participated in this competition in 2011 and 2020. And thank you for your contribution this morning. We are now moving on to Greece and St. Mary's College in Naas. Over to you, Greece.
We, as the Hellenic Republic of Greece, believe that to protect the lives and livelihoods of EU citizens, the Health Security Committee must be given increased responsibilities. In the time since the appearance of the COVID-19 virus, a terrible loss of life has occurred. Furthermore, each of our economies has been impacted severely. As a country with a great reliance on tourism, Greece understands completely the necessity of reinstating cross-border movement throughout the EU. We believe that this can only be achieved with full cooperation within the Union. Nowhere is this clearer than in our efforts towards promoting the Digital Green Certificate. Although willing to pursue the issue alone, it was with the strength of the Union that it was brought to full fruition. In that vein, Greece would like to close by emphasizing our commitment to consensus in this issue. Middle ground should be found in this motion so that we can effectively use the Health Security Committee to protect our citizens and our economies. Thank you.
And thank you, Greece. And your school came first last year, so you have a lot to live up to, and the very best of luck in the competition. We're now moving on to Italy, which is represented by Ordscoil Rees from Dublin. Over to you, Italy.
Buongiorno. The delegation of the Italian Republic is in favor of adopting this regulation. Serious cross-border threats don't recognize the artificial barriers we put up between our nations. Therefore, it is nonsensical to have different rules across the continent that is extremely interconnected. National governments will always have different opinions and agendas. For this reason, the Italian delegation believes the power should be in the hands of the best scientists that Europe has to offer. Science doesn't change from country to country, so neither should the rules applied as a result of this science. The committee is not only comprised of scientists. Crucially, junior health ministers from every EU state are on this panel. This gives the organization the element of accountability to the people of the EU that is needed if we are to give it powers contained in this legislation. It also gives every member state, big or small, a voice in these important matters. A vote to adopt this legislation would strengthen the EU's ability to respond to transnational diseases using many of the public health measures we are now familiar with nowadays. Grazie.
Thank you very much, Italy. And also, that is another school now we're evening up in favor of the motion. We're now moving on to Latvia and St. Mary's Holy Faith Secondary School in Dublin. Over to you, Latvia.
Hello and good morning to our fellow honourable member states. I'm privileged to sit amongst all of you today, albeit online, in order to present the view of Latvia in regards to the proposal. We are in support of the proposal, as it would mean more protection for not only the people of Latvia's health, but for the entirety of the EU. However, we do believe that the facilities and resources that each member state has access to must be assessed before any legislative decisions can be made. It is important that this is done, as some member states, including our own, may require more funding in order to accommodate any decision that the Health Security Committee might have in mind. This funding would ensure better healthcare for the general public and a budget to improve the infrastructure available. It is essential that we provide these resources, as it will be difficult to have a coordinated response when we do not have the same or similar assets. Thank you.
And thank you, Latvia. And your school had an honourable mention last year and the best in this competition. We're now moving on to Luxembourg and Loreto Secondary School in Clonmel. Luxembourg.
Hello, my name is Saoirse Tracy and I will be representing Luxembourg today. Luxembourg stands strongly behind this proposal. Luxembourg has been a member of the EU since 1958. Even though we only make up 0.1% of the EU population, we are at the heart of Europe, both geographically and mentally. On a daily basis, over 200,000 workers from other EU countries commute to Luxembourg to work. Luxembourg's health service helped its neighbouring countries with their overflow of patients throughout this pandemic as a result of open border systems. The healthcare system in Luxembourg is one of the best in Europe. The country has a high standard of state-funded healthcare, which covers all citizens with basic medical coverage. We don't know what health threats we may face in the future, so we need the EU to have all the powers required to act fast in response to any threat. Thank you.
And thank you, Luxembourg. And you participated last at this in 2008, so delighted to see you back at this event. We're now moving to the Netherlands and St. Joseph's Secondary School in Tull-en-Clare. Over to you, the Netherlands.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, we in the Netherlands broadly welcome this proposal as it focuses on a cooperative committee made up of representatives from national governments rather than increasing the powers of the European Commission, which this regulation does not do. However, we would specifically like to raise concern over Article 6(1)(a) Part 4, which states that the committee will be responsible for enforcing EU-wide contact tracing strategies. In the interest of personal data and privacy, the Netherlands is opposed to this information being in the hands of the Health Security Committee. We welcome the opportunity to work with our fellow member states, and although we may have diverse views, it is this diversity which makes our union robust and ready to strengthen our preparedness for these never envisioned challenges. Thank you.
And thank you very much, the Netherlands. And your school came first in 2017, and good luck today. We're now moving on to Slovakia and Ballantyre Community School here in Dublin. Over to you, Slovakia.
Slovakia is in favour of the motion presented by the Council here today. We believe a European health union will be extremely beneficial to the entirety of this union and its neighbours. We need to do this together so we can combat our current and future crises. Slovakia would benefit strongly on providing the Health and Security Committee with more responsibility to form a health union, because in our current climate, we are still finding our footing combating this threat. Our ability is extremely limited to cope with this crisis, and our effectiveness to contact trace is insufficient. We would greatly benefit from larger EU intervention. As for our citizens, some of us have been struggling because of the current condition of our country. Our citizens are in dire crisis due to a high rate of cardiovascular issues. Many of our citizens suffer from these problems, which is aggravated by the health epidemic. We are trying our best to cope with the pandemic, but we simply don't have the resources to continue this way. So we would greatly benefit from the creation of a European Health Union. Thank you.
And thank you for sticking to your time, and the very best of luck today. Now, we are moving on to Malta and Manor House School in Raheny in Dublin. Over to you, Malta.
Distinguished guests, fellow delegates, good morning. My name is Ella, and together with my teammate Kate, we will speak on behalf of Malta. We are in favour of both a coordinated approach at EU level and an increase in powers to the Health Security Committee. However, we would like a guarantee that all member states will actively follow recommendations, as we feel as though this has not occurred thus far. We propose the penalisation of member states who disobey the increased powers under Article 6. As seen in the public opinion polls conducted by the EU Parliament in 2020, more than half of the Maltese questioned totally agreed that to be a part of the European Union, member states should share and respect common values, including the rule of law. We feel that this is essential with regards to the increased powers. Having said that, we are concerned by the lack of coherence throughout all member states. We declined economically, specifically through the tourism industry last year. We lost €251 million in July 2020 alone. We accepted this as an uncontrollable outcome of this crisis. Despite this, we remained loyal and dedicated to EU coordination. We rely on tourism, but we understand the importance of following EU plans to enable the EU's progression as a cohesive team. Thank you.
And thank you, Malta, and the very best of luck today with your contributions. We are now moving on to Estonia and St. Leo's College, Carlo. Over to you, and I know this is your first time your school contributing to this event, so the best of luck. Estonia.
Chairperson, adjudicators, fellow member states. My name is Rachel and alongside Carissa, we'll be representing Estonia and we are in favour of the motion. Since March, Estonia has had 117,000 COVID cases but only 1,100 deaths. We've implemented strict restrictions including mandatory face masks, hotel quarantine and social distancing measures, and regularly updated guidance on schools, retail and gatherings due to the case numbers at a given time. We have vaccinated over 89,000 people, which accounts for 6% of our population. According to a public opinion poll commissioned by the EU Parliament, the majority of respondents remain dissatisfied with the solidarity shown between EU member states in fighting this pandemic. Therefore, as Carissa will outline now, it is essential there is more coordination at EU level.
Coordination between the EU and its member states is essential to dealing with this pandemic. An EU survey shows that 66% of respondents agree that the EU should have more coordination to deal with this pandemic. 54% of respondents think that the EU should have a greater financial means to tackle the consequences of this crisis. The 27 EU health ministers could start coordinating their responses by taking a common line on testing, quarantine, social distancing and vaccine rollout. A wide EU coordination response not only would border restrictions be avoided, but the choice of control intervention will benefit from a greater variety of advice.
Thank you very much, Estonia, for your contribution. And I think we're now moving on to Bulgaria and Dunamase, a college in Portlaoise. Over to you, Bulgaria.
Good morning, adjudicators and health ministers. We, Bulgaria, are in favour of more coordination at EU level in order to tackle cross-border health threats. We are an industrialised, upper middle class income country with a population of 7 million. Our country having administered 9.74 doses per 100 citizens, the lowest statistical rate for any EU country. We believe if the EU had control over cross-border regulations for all member states, we as a country could aim to have more of our citizens protected by the end of the year. Bulgaria is a loyal country of the EU. Witness when Bulgaria continues to follow human rights from the ECHR even in times of emergency. We see this in Article 2, Protocol 4, as Bulgarians are allowed to move freely within their country. We have also taken recommendations from the European Commission in regards to restrictions at international level. We believe that communication and cooperation is the key to stop the spread of COVID-19 for us, Bulgaria, and other member states.
Thank you very much, Bulgaria. And I know that this is also your school's first time taking part in this. So the very, very best of luck to you today. We're now moving on to Austria, which is represented by Dunshaughlin Community College. I'm from Meath as well. So the very best of luck to you today. We're going to Austria.
Good morning, esteemed judges and fellow delegates. I wish to make Austria's stance in today's debate very clear. While we support the spirit of the proposal and wholeheartedly agree that there needs to be more communication and cooperation,
and I think we're having some technical difficulties there.
This regulation will be used with terms such as requires or may require coordinated response at EU level. This lack of clarity makes us very wary of the proposal. Also, we oppose the proposal of a regulation as the most suitable way in which to achieve this dialogue and cooperation between
Okay, I think we are having some difficulties with Austria, and what we might do is go back to Austria and give them. Sorry, I'm just going to stop Austria. There were some connection problems there. So what we might do is go back to you. We're going to go to Romania and then come back to you. You can deliver your entire speech. Okay, let's go to Romania and Mercy Mount Hawk in Tralee. Over to you, Romania, and then we'll go back to Austria.
Bună ziua! Since the 26th of February 2020, Romania has confirmed over 700,000 cases of COVID-19 within our borders and over 18,000 COVID-related deaths. That we need a European health union is not in doubt, but we must get it right. With this in mind, we agree to Articles 1 to 5 of this proposal. The difference in case levels is cause for concern when discussing the placement of blanket health measures over the EU as a whole. We must allow for self-determination in relation to governance, as each member state knows its citizens best. For this reason, we question Article 6, as we believe the enforcement of measures, and in particular curfews at an EU level, could not just affect the approval rating of the EU, but the effectiveness of the committee. We must question how people would react to legislation regarding curfew from the EU when people struggle to accept such measures from their own government. We ask that Article 6 be amended to remove all but isolation and quarantine requirements, and we are open to discuss contact tracing measures. We welcome agreement from any other country to the amendment of Article 6. Thank you for your time.
And thank you, Romania. And you have a very long record of participating in this competition, and good luck to you today. Now, we're going to return to Austria. There will be technical issues along the way, and that's part of doing it online. So you get another chance, and we're going to facilitate everyone as best we can today. Back to you, to Austria and Dunshaughlin Community College.
Good morning again, fellow delegates and esteemed judges. I want to make Austria's stance very clear in today's debate, and that is that while we support the spirit of the proposal and that we wholeheartedly agree with more cooperation and communication between countries in the EU to deal with these serious cross-border health threats, we cannot support the proposal as it stands currently. There are many articles that contain far too much ambiguous language for our comfort as to when the regulation would be used, with terms such as requires or may require coordinated response at EU level, which makes us wary of the amount of power we would be handing over to the EU. We also want to oppose the proposal of a regulation as the most suitable way in which we can achieve this dialogue. And in our opinion, we believe a directive would be more appropriate, as public health is a matter of national competence in the EU, and we believe a level of national sovereignty must be maintained, especially with regards to border controls. Thank you.
And thank you for your patience, and second time perfect. We're now moving on to Finland and to Hamilton High School. Over to you, Finland.
Hiva huomenta ja tervetuloa. Se on kunnia olla tässä. Odotamme innolla tuotava keskustelu. Madam Chair, dignitaries and fellow delegates, the delegation of Finland looks forward to a fruitful debate on the key issue of health. This pandemic has highlighted various deficiencies in the EU's approach to the current public health emergency, and we look forward to addressing and hopefully resolving several of these outstanding issues.
The delegation wholeheartedly agrees with this proposal, which it sees as a vital step towards a more coordinated and comprehensive response to plan for the future exigencies. However, we hope to build on this proposal by emphasizing the importance of resource security and in seeking clarification of certain aspects of the proposal, with the hope of creating a more precise legal framework. This, we trust, would result in an outcome that will work for every member state. We look forward to a constructive and productive debate while applying the Finnish art of inner strength, or sisu, which means to persevere with courage and tenacity in the face of adversity. The very best of luck to everyone, or as we say in Finland, onnea kaikille.
And well done on so many levels there. And also good luck to your schools, the first time it's participating in this event. We're now going to Croatia and St. Columba's College in Donegal. Over to you, to Croatia.
Fellow ministers, chairperson, Croatia calling. It is the view of our government that a more coordinated EU approach is essential to tackle not just the COVID-19 pandemic, but also any other serious cross-border threats to health. We agree in essence with the views and ideals expressed in this regulation that is up for debate today. However, Croatia takes issue with Article 5.3, where it states that any decision brought to vote should be decided by a simple majority. Can monumental decisions relating to public health be decided by 50% plus one? The Croatian view is that this is simply not enough. Today, we seek support for amending this to a 70% majority within the committee. Another aspect of the regulation that we, the Croatian government, disagree with is curfews. It is the view of our people and our government that this goes a step too far, and we are calling for this to be removed from the regulation with immediate effect. Thank you.
And thank you very much. I am now moving to Germany and the Christian Brothers College in Cork. And over to you, Germany.
Honourable Chair, the delegation of Germany understands that ensuring a more coordinated approach to the next large public health crisis will be beneficial to all member states. However, we do not believe that this regulation is the correct manner in which to do so. The Health Security Committee proved to be largely ineffective during the COVID-19 pandemic. We believe that this is due to the innate functioning of the group. The proposed regulation does nothing to expand the scope of the HSC, leaving it ineffective. All the regulations laid out in Clause 5 already exist in some capacity relating to the running of the Health Security Commission. What the resolution does add is an unprecedented power to remove the civil liberty of nations. We at Germany believe that the expansion of the EU Council brief will be a far more effective manner to do this. The EU Council brief covers a far broader range of aspects, meaning that there will be a far more effective at dealing with the clash between health, the economy, and personal freedom. Thank you, Shun.
And thank you, Germany. And you had an honourable mention for your school in 2018, and good luck this time round. And finally, to Portugal. And we have a long way to get to Portugal, but we're finally there. And St. Vincent's Secondary School in Dundalk. Over to you.
Portugal is in favour of more coordination at EU level in order to tackle cross-border health crises, such as the COVID-19 pandemic, by recommending the use of face masks, social distancing requirements, testing strategies, contact tracing strategies, and curfews to reduce the spread of the virus. However, Portugal is against quarantine requirements and travel bans. Quarantine requirements and travel bans on EU member state countries contradict the policy of the EU Treaty of Maastricht 1992, which grants each EU citizen the right to move freely within the EU. Having the lowest rates of COVID-19 infections in Europe presently, we believe that quarantine restrictions and travel bans on Portugal should be eliminated. Public health has been and always will be a priority of Portugal, but we do not anticipate the quarantining of travellers upon entering Portugal. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Portugal. Now that concludes the first part of today's debate, and thank you everyone for your opening statements. And I think it's fair to say that most people it was balanced, but most people were probably in favour of the motion. But let's tease out this now, and we're now moving to the next section. We'll to 11 o'clock, and we'll take a short break. So from now until 11 o'clock, each team can indicate in the chat room function of your Zoom screens if you would like to speak and provide more details about your national position, or if you would like to make a comment or ask a question to another member state. I'm going to try to get to everyone and make sure everybody has an opportunity. And if you want to speak, all you have to do is to type the name of your member state into the chat box, and I will then list the countries that are speaking next. And for this part of the debate, you will have just 45 seconds each to make your point. So please watch your time and remember to turn off your microphones when you're not speaking, and obviously to turn them on when you are. And I would like to encourage everyone to make a further statement. Use your time, this as an opportunity. So let's begin. And my gosh, people are out of the traps very quickly. And I'm trying to go way back up. I think it's to Luxembourg. We'll start first. I'm going to go to Luxembourg.
Luxembourg would like to address the following countries. Firstly, Sweden said that one size doesn't fit all, but if we want a long-lasting result, all member states must work together for a quick and beneficial outcome. Luxembourg believes that public health measures at national level need to be consistent with each other and coordinated in order to contain further spread and minimize the consequences of such threats. Secondly, can Ireland please explain how they can support this motion while pushing EU countries on a travel red list and enforced quarantine? Thirdly, does Denmark realise that the virus has shown us that it does not respect borders? We need more cooperation, not less. And lastly, Hungary said that every country should have their own way of handling the pandemic. Luxembourg's health services helped its neighbouring countries with their overflow patients. Is Hungary trying to say that we should not help neighbouring countries and just fend for ourselves? Luxembourg stands by the quote that alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much.
Okay, and thank you very much, Luxembourg. Now we're moving to Slovenia, to Greece, to Spain, and to France. So to Slovenia, to Greece, to Spain, and France. To Slovenia first.
A staunch advocate of an integrated, inclusive, and strong EU, Slovenia insists that European solidarity is vital in dealing with cross-border health crises. We strongly emphasize that the health situation in one member state is contingent on that of others, and that a lack of consistency in public health measures has led EU citizens to question the scientific basis of these vital measures.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to Greece, Spain, and France. So now to Greece.
I reiterate that Greece believes that the Health Security Committee requires increased powers. We would like to address concerns surrounding the notion of a one-size-fits-all approach to the proposal. We emphasize with the countries who have experienced great devastation during the course of this health crisis. To foster trust is more difficult now than ever. However, remember that our union was founded to protect lives and encourage cooperation, and that needs to be amplified now. We would like to draw to the attention of the specific Article 6 of the motion, where it is outlined that adaptations will be made in accordance with each individual member state's needs and circumstances. With this in mind, what can be changed so we can find ourselves with full consensus? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we're moving to Spain and France. So first to Spain. And we're moving to Spain. I'll come back to Spain. We're going to go to France now. And to France, just to hear France.
The collaborative approach of all EU member states to coping with health crises, such as the recent COVID-19 pandemic, in our opinion, is necessary for future instances. 74% of French people believe that the fight against the coronavirus pandemic fully justifies recent limitations to their individual freedoms. Article 6 of the proposal outlines public health measures that may be applied to all member states by the committee as a means of coordinating risk and crisis communication. This is in line with the willingness of those surveyed and the commitment of these people to sufficiently tackle future cross-border health crises. Given the data found in all three public opinion polls, the people of France, as well as the majority of Europeans, agree that logical steps should be taken to provide accurate scientific reasonings to combat the spread of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're now going to go back to Spain, but I just want to alert everyone, we'll then go to Hungary, Bulgaria, Lithuania, and Germany. They're the next tranche of speakers, but back to Spain.
Thank you. Sorry, we disconnected for a second. I would like to add that Spain does support cross-border coordination and discussions with regards to these kind of health threats, but I would also like to highlight a common thread of objection to Article 6 thread many countries who have stated that they're in favor of the regulation. A lot of people seem to be in agreement that it's too much power to hand over to the EU, with a collection of countries that all have regard for their own nations. And it's important when restricting the liberties of a people to leave such intense powers of restricting movement with the member states' government.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to, again, I'm going to list them out in order, the next five: Hungary, Bulgaria, Lithuania, and Germany. Okay, so Hungary.
As we already mentioned, we are against the proposal, such as other member states already mentioned and highlighted that the Article 6 would go too far. There are some things such as the contact tracing strategies, which is just not capable with, and it's not, you can just not, with the personal data, it's just not concrete enough. And also there is stated that it will be adapted to the member states, but not in which way or how. And also, as for example, Slovakia already mentioned, the health system in every country is so different, so that we first have to come to a same level to then can share the responsibility to an EU level.
And thank you very much, Hungary, for all those pertinent points. We're now going to Bulgaria.
COVID-19 infections are decreasing in Bulgaria, with 1,762 new infections reported on an average each day. There has been 392,913 infections and 15,618 coronavirus-related deaths in the country. Bulgaria has administered at least 676,501 doses of COVID vaccine so far, 4.8% of the country's populated for. COVID has had a heavy impact on our country's employment. Over 90,000 people have lost their jobs. Bulgaria plans to have 45% vaccinated by the end of the year 2021.
This statistical was one of the lowest with the EU.
Thank you very much, Gary.
We would also like to agree with France in regards to solidarity and consistency. We think that this is key to fighting the pandemic.
Thank you very much, and thanks for both of your contributions. We're now moving to Lithuania and Germany. I would also like to advise the other teams that next up will be Italy, Czechia, Sweden, Cyprus, and Croatia. But first now, it's over to Lithuania.
All right, we'd like to strongly agree with Croatia in striking Article 6, 1A. We do not believe curfews are needed. Also, for Article 5, Part 4, we would suggest a two-thirds majority vote. We'd also suggest great unity in between the states, and
thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. And you've made some pertinent points there as well and teased out the issues a bit more. We're now going to Germany. And after that, again, just to advise, we will be going to Italy, Czechia, Sweden, Cyprus, and Croatia. So to Germany.
Thank you. We as Germany reject this resolution as it is an expansion of an already failing mechanism. We believe the EU Council would be better to handle with this issue than the HSC, as it can handle the clash between different necessary viewpoints. With these viewpoints, the EU Council will be better at allocating concise, more accurate research funding. The Council can deal with nuances that the HSC simply cannot. This also combats the issue of public opinion of the HSC by giving this power to the Council, which is elective representatives, making it more palatable to the people. Thank you.
And thank you very much for your points there. We're now moving on to our next group and starting with Italy.
The Italian delegation would like to address the complaints about curfews made by Lithuania and Croatia. The Italian delegation believes that curfews are important and proportionate measures to deal with the threats to human health. So do two-thirds of European governments who impose some variation of curfews during the COVID-19 pandemic, and the ECDC, which recommends them as a public health measure. We believe the Health Committee should have access to this tool in order to fight threats. Curfews give responsible citizens more freedoms, not less. They mean that people can attend school, go to shops, or use public amenities during the day. Later on, many people outside are conducting non-essential activities, such as socializing. This is where there is a risk of gatherings, which result in numerous cases of disease. Curfews cut out this risky activity and decrease the amount of cases. This means that the essential parts of society remain open and that some other restrictions can be relaxed so that people who obey health measures receive tangible results. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Italy. There's clearly very strong news about curfews. I'm now going to Czechia.
It may be assumed that Czechia's stance in relation to this motion are a result of mere exasperation, when in actuality there is a much more practical and logical reasoning behind it. If we implement a regulation that enables the closure of borders of all countries in the European Union, we are hereby dismissing what we have learned from the COVID-19 pandemic. We should focus our attention on initiating a system or amendment that will protect the health of the people without compromising the economy. Czech Republic believes in choice, for each country to assess and devise a response to their individual circumstance. We are a union with countries of varying populations and economical situations. Where border closures may be the optimum choice for one, it is not an option for another.
Thank you very much. And now we're moving to Sweden.
In response to several countries in regard to increasing EU coordination, it is the view of Sweden that a coordinate response will not work in such a vast and diverse area like the EU. It is pivotal to point out that all EU member states are not the same, and attempting to impose the same rules and restrictions across them will lead to disaster and will, no doubt, further damage public opinion of the EU. To Luxembourg, increasing the power of the EU would take away from each sovereign country to decide what happens within its own borders and to its own citizens. Sweden finds the fact that the EU can impose restrictions such as curfews deeply troubling. At this time, Sweden would prefer that the recommendation be given instead of strict legal restrictions.
Thank you very much, Sweden. And again, the issue of curfews coming up. We're moving now to Cyprus and Croatia. And just to alert the other teams that after that, we will be going to Poland, the Netherlands, Slovakia, Romania, and Finland. Okay, So back up to Cyprus.
Colleagues, thank you for your attention. Cyprus supports this proposal wholeheartedly, but still acknowledges the need for flexibility within the member states when it comes to their individual healthcare. We agree with our colleagues from Bulgaria that smaller member states can greatly benefit from a more united front when it comes to healthcare in the EU. However, we must disagree with our colleagues from Germany when they said that the committee was perhaps unsuccessful in the past, so therefore will be unsuccessful now, as the whole point of this proposal is to improve the committee. Cyprus feels that the implementation of the Green Vaccine Passport will help to reopen borders swiftly and safely, and that the committee should consider including legislation concerning the passport in this proposal. Thank you.
And thank you very much for an alternative view. Now we're going to Croatia, and after that, again, it will be Poland, the Netherlands, Slovakia, Romania, and Finland. So to Croatia.
We thank Lithuania for their support of our majority vote edict. Article 6 has become clear as the main battleground here today. The Croatian people have been adamant that curfews go too far, and we have to listen to the voices of our people. Widespread protests show how much they are not wanted. Our health experts have advised us that curfews do more harm than good, especially with public morale. It should be at each member state's discretion whether to implement them or not. Therefore, Croatia, just like Sweden, Lithuania, Hungary, and Romania, propose that curfews should be axed from Article 6. We also like to note a worrying rhetoric around sanctions and penalties as proposed by Malta. We feel it is important to not move in that direction. Thank you.
And thank you for your comments. We're now going to Poland. Over to you, Poland.
To elaborate on Poland's position, the EU has defined but limited responsibilities for serious cross-border threats such as pandemics, established by what's known as the 2013 decision. Health, like education, is a national competence, and Poland argues for the retention of the status quo. Coordinating a large-scale common response is also very difficult. For example, Germany has struggled to implement a coherent national response. Each member state is also unique, operates in a particular environment, and requires different solutions. We argue for targeted approaches that address the specific needs of individual member states. Within this pandemic, we've done many things right. However, we need to address vaccine hesitancy, disinformation, and our genomic sequencing capacity. This is better managed by cooperation, goodwill, and a spirit of solidarity. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Poland. We are now going to the Netherlands.
Like our fellow member states, Romania, we are concerned about the impact of increased powers regarding Article 6. Any changes must be dealt with through the Future of Europe conference, not through the regulation. We must reach the consensus which will protect and safeguard the health and freedom of our citizens. We'd like to take the opportunity to question the proposal by Malta regarding the penalties they've suggested, and would welcome the opportunity for clarity on the proposal regarding the Health Committee. We must represent a union, not just united in diversity, but also united against adversity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Netherlands. And I know you want Malta's contribution, but first we're going over to Slovakia.
So, if you look back at our economy over the past two and a half-ish years, we went into a recession because of the health epidemic currently going on. And if you look at the economy in the past few months of 2021, we've been down by 7%. We cannot continue at this rate. And if you highlight the way curfews are treated in other countries, our curfews are short in the early hours of the day, which does not affect our citizens. So they have come to accept the terms that we needed to enforce to ensure their safety. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Slovakia. And we have Romania and Finland next, but I also want to alert everyone to the next tranche of speakers after that. So after Finland, we will be going to Austria, Latvia, Malta, Greece, and also to Spain. And also, I'm very conscious of those who have not spoken yet during this part of the debate, that we really do want to come to everyone. Okay, so we're now going to Romania.
Good morning. It is our great honour to be representing Romania today. We support certain aspects of the proposal that has been put forward, and we believe that the quarantine and isolation measures recommended in Article 6 are entirely crucial to prevent another serious cross-border threat. However, the other measures must be removed. We must understand that people would be outraged at the notion of being forced to be home at a time dictated by a politician in Brussels. This malcontent would be the perfect breeding ground for a malignant anti-EU sentiment to grow, at a time when our union is arguably at its weakest. It certainly does not need another threat that could potentially sunder it apart. This curfew could easily be the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back. This proposal has the potential to be exemplary. It is without doubt that coordinated isolation and quarantine measures, particularly to protect those needing to travel for essential reasons within the EU, are crucial, as the freedom to travel is at the very core of the EU. We are looking forward to cooperating with Lithuania, Poland, and Croatia. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Romania. We're now moving to Finland. And after Finland, just to remind you again, we will be going to Austria, Latvia, Malta, Greece, and Spain. Thank you. To Romania. Now we had Romania, we're now going to Finland.
The Finnish delegation is strongly in favour of this proposal and believes more power should be granted to the Health Security Committee to enforce a coordinated response to cross-border threats to health. It is paramount that every EU member state fully enforces its borders, especially in the context of a pandemic. And to put it bluntly, much of the criticisms towards proposals such as these are ridiculous. For example, in January of 2020, when President Trump suggested completely closing the United States borders, he was called racist, not just by the American people, but by powerful politicians such as Nancy Pelosi and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And when Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe suggested banning all flights from Wuhan at around the same time, his colleagues accused him of overreacting. As we have seen from the COVID-19 pandemic, it is evident that some form of response to cross-border threats to health is absolutely vital, and we implore all member states who disagree to reconsider their view.
Thank you very much, Finland. And now we move to Austria to get their views. Austria.
Thank you. We in Austria agree with Sweden and Croatia and their rejection of the one-size-fits-all mentality. We have only to look at the different numbers of COVID cases in different countries to see that no two situations are the same. Although Italy is correct in saying that the science doesn't change, the effects of the virus and the scale to which they affect different countries absolutely vary. Similarly to Poland, we support the spirit of the proposal and would like to implement a directive. This would be a goals-based approach rather than a measured-based approach, and would provide more flexibility for each country to administer regulations as necessary, because each country requires a different level of rigorousness when it comes to dealing with this virus. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to Latvia.
We agree with Greece, Lithuania and Slovakia on their positions of the motion, especially as Latvia's population also suffers from cardiovascular and respiratory diseases, which COVID further impacts. However, we respectfully challenge Portugal's beliefs on travel restrictions. We understand that Portugal is suffering heavily from a loss of tourism, and we empathise with this, but so are many other EU nations. And we believe that these EU restrictions are necessary to protect national and international health. And we support the green passports, as these may further protect borders and encourage travel in a safe way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Latvia. Now we're going to Malta, and I know the Netherlands called you out, so over to you, Malta.
As Malta, our government's priorities were both physical and mental health of our citizens. By following the EU guidelines, Maltese Health Service has fared very well during the pandemic. The hospitals have been in surge capacity procedure but have never felt overwhelmed. We have also supported our fellow EU members, such as when we donated PPE, supplies and staff to Italy while they were the epicenter of the pandemic in April 2020, before the EU officially asked its member states. We are one of the top EU countries for testing, contact tracing and vaccine rollout due to our strict adherence of the COVID guidelines set by the EU. We managed to avoid a full lockdown, however, we unfortunately saw suicide rates go by 7% and the overall joy in senior citizens decline by 30%. In response, we launched 2 new suicide hotlines, as well as several geriatric online psychiatric services helplines and supply and delivery services, all free of charge. While other countries failed to acknowledge this dire situation, it was and will continue to be a main priority. In contrast to countries like Greece and Ireland that have brushed off mental welfare of their citizens, we have accounted for all aspects of our citizens' health, thus gaining their confidence and trust.
To respond to the Netherlands regarding penalisation, we feel that penalties must be enforced to control serious cross-border health crises such as the COVID-19 pandemic. We second Latvia that each country must be assessed individually based on what they have access to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming back on that point. We're going to Greece next, and then Spain, and after that we will be going to Czechia, Ireland, Slovenia, Estonia, and Lithuania. So we're going to Greece now.
We would firstly like to discuss Malta's proposal that member states should be fined in order to enforce the power of the committee. Although we are in full support of the proposal, we find issue with this idea and do not believe that it is in any way an effective method of encouraging cooperation, which should be the main goal of the Health Security Committee as it will stand in the motion. We would also like to emphasize that the aim of today's discussions is not to attack other member states for their welfare and their approach to the pandemic, but instead to find consensus on what we can do in the future to prevent future health crises. Finally, we would agree with Lithuania that raising the simple majority as proposed in Article 5 to a 2/3 vote may be more conducive to a fair outcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greece. And now we move to Spain for their contribution.
Thank you. I would like to propose the question of a vaccine rollout. Presumably that would come under this regulation. Recently, we have seen controversies over the AstraZeneca vaccine and health threats, and have seen even Denmark stop all rollout of the AstraZeneca vaccine. I ask the countries in favour of this regulation, do you propose forcing Denmark to inject their people with a vaccine they believe unsafe? Or even Malta, what punishment would you propose to reprimand Denmark for doing what they believe is in the best interest of their people?
Thank you very much. And another person calling out Malta to expand on their position in relation to those penalties. We're now moving to Czechia, and after that it will be to Ireland, Slovenia, Estonia, and Lithuania. Okay, Czechia.
Sorry, Czechia has already spoken and expressed their views on this topic.
Okay, that's fair enough. And we're now moving to Ireland. Ireland, and if you could unmute, turn on your microphone, please.
Hello. To answer Luxfirm's previous question about restrictive quarantines, it's worked for similar islands as small as us, such as New Zealand, and who are now reporting 0 cases. So we think that would also work for us. And to go back to Croatia on what they said about public morale, it is important to keep the public morale up, but public health should help take the forefront in terms of importance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now I'm moving over to Slovenia.
The government of Slovenia would like to echo the position of many of the delegates and question Article 6 of the regulation, with particular regard to 1 Part A. To enhance the clarity, Slovenia proposes to add the word affected, so that the sentence would read for the application of all affected member states, as health threats do not always affect all member states, and implementing measures across the union to unaffected member states would be unwarranted. We also agree with the views previously expressed by Spain and Austria in the necessity of the very clear definition within this regulation, and with particular regard to the situation that merits the scope of the committee mechanisms. Article 2, Part D introduces an ill-defined criterion, namely a threat of unknown origin. Slovenia urges that this criterion be better defined or deleted from the text.
Thank you very much. And after Slovenia, we're going to Estonia, Lithuania, and I would also like to bring in Denmark, because I think I've missed them in the messages. So we're going on to Estonia.
We disagree with Czechoslovakia and Portugal, as we find the EU countries do need cross-border regulations. As Deputy Director of the Health Board, Marianne Harmer said that the growing numbers of cases in Estonia have been caused by holiday trips to Egypt and Turkey. As of Wednesday of this week, Estonia continued to be on threat level red, and the burden on hospitals remains high. So it is essential that an EU collective approach to cross-border movement with full cooperation from all sides is much needed. The Green Certificate would work hugely in combating the virus to curtail it, and it will be a collective approach. Thank you.
And thank you very much. We're going to Lithuania and then Denmark, and we still have yet to hear again during this section from Denmark and Portugal, and we certainly would like to hear from them. Okay, and yes, we've had Belgium as well. So let us move on. We're now going to Lithuania. Lithuania.
Sorry about that. Firstly, I would like to respond to our honourable friends from Italy. We are not against curfews. We are against the EU being able to dictate curfews for individual countries. Secondly, I'd like to thank Greece for their support of our amendment to increase the vote needed to 2/3. We feel this is necessary, as only having simple majority means that a majority of countries can overrule a very vocal minority that is just one vote off. Thirdly, we would like to support the addition of the word affected proposed by Slovenia. Thank you.
And also, I'd like to talk about the Netherlands. Can you talk about the privacy that you suggested? Can you expand on that, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
And calling out the Netherlands there. We're now going over to Denmark. Denmark.
So we begin to Luxembourg. You mentioned how COVID doesn't respect borders, and I have to disagree. As people who have the virus and who come to Denmark have to be tested, and all people that enter Denmark have to be tested. And if they test positive, they're not allowed to come into the country. And then to Estonia and Finland, you have both handled the virus exceedingly, and I do not see why you wish to give up your sovereignty of both your country and people when you can handle the virus on your own. And to Finland, you mentioned cooperation amongst EU members. We believe in cooperation, but we believe in cooperation, not legislation. Well, adding legislation to this would only make it harder for people to cooperate with each other.
And as always, the legislation comes back to national health, and we compel nations like Estonia and Finland to rethink their views and to put national health in the forefront of their mind and well-being.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Denmark. And we have Portugal coming up. I'm also going to bring in Belgium as well, but Portugal, first to you.
We would like to highlight a common disfavour of the regulations proposed in Article 6, and we suggest the regulations of this article be taken on board and considered by each member state, but ultimately decided upon by domestic health services. Also, in response to Latvia, as we stated, apart from our economy suffering because of lack of tourism, the travel ban also violates the free movement of people, but we are in favour of green passports to ensure safe travel. Thank you.
And to Belgium.
Good morning, all. Oh, not okay. Good morning, all. Sorry about that. I would like to start with the strong condemnation of all the countries that have decided not to be in favor of this proposal. And I would like to commend countries such as the Netherlands, Italy, and Greece for their cooperation. People need to remember why this council started in the first place. The European Union is a political and economic union. That it requires cooperation in times like these that are unprecedented. People are using Article 6 of this proposal as a way to get out of this and say that there are issues with it. Yes, there may be issues with the wording, but many countries have opposed certain elements to it, but it doesn't mean you must reject it in whole. The solution that we have to this is that you include the Council of Ministers. They are voted, and by voting these people in alongside the Health and Security Council, you will have a coordinated response of elected and not elected officials that can work together collaboratively to bring forward a great resolution in the end for the European Union.
Thank you very much for that, and a considered contribution there. We have about 5 minutes before the break, so I have possibly 5 more contributions, and they will come in order on through the chat room from France, Germany, Luxembourg, Malta, and Greece. So from France, Germany, Luxembourg, Malta and Greece. And really, if everybody can keep to their 45 seconds, because we're heading to our break at 11 o'clock. So France, Germany, Luxembourg, Malta and Greece. So first up, France.
The delegation of France would like to question the stance of Romania and Croatia on curfews, as in the public opinion polls, 67% of Romania and 59% of Croatia believe that the fight against the coronavirus pandemic fully justifies recent limitations to their individual freedoms. Therefore, we believe that the stance of Romania and Croatia contradicts the opinion of their people.
We would also like to say that the delegation of France would like to question the stance of Austria in regards to their statement that the EU should not have as much power over EU member states in regards to the coronavirus pandemic. This contradicts the public opinion polls, where 55% of Austria totally agrees that the EU should have more competencies to deal with crises such as the coronavirus pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you have certainly called out a number of countries there, which will make for a lively debate as we go on. We're going now to Germany.
Honourable Chair, Germany would like to reiterate to cyclists that the functioning of the HSE outlined in Clause 5 is near identical to its current functioning. Therefore, it would remain ineffective as it has been already. The delegate of Poland also commented on Germany's, quote, not coherent approach to the COVID pandemic. However, there is a reason for this. The needs of a state like Baden-Württemberg is very different to the needs of a city-state like Berlin. The German approach, however, did include a level of coordination, which had it been the same in the EU, it would have been far more effective. The EU Council would mirror the German state. The Council will propose EU-wide approaches, but given how the Council understands the different complex economic needs of nations, the EU Council would be flexible, allowing different countries to accommodate their needs more effectively. This would also soothe the concerns of countries like Austria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're now going to Luxembourg.
Luxembourg is confused as to the several proposals to eradicate Subclause A, Part 6, curfews. Luxembourg stands with the use of strict curfews, as these curfews have led to the reopening of Luxembourg, less deaths, and less contagion amongst the population. Luxembourg has shown that it is possible to have a country free of COVID if all the necessary restrictions are put in place. Between the winter months of 2020 and as recent as the 17th of April, Luxembourg has recorded 0 cases on several occasions. This proves that strict curfews have a major impact on the health of citizens and the country's economy. Luxembourg stands strongly with the Subclause A, Part 6. Thank you.
And thank you, Luxembourg, for giving a very practical example. We have now time for Malta and Greece before the break. So Malta.
As I previously mentioned in my opening statement, like many other countries, we are heavily reliant on tourism. Despite the decline, we have remained fully loyal to EU coordination. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for all member states. For example, Greece. They announced the opening of their borders from May 14th prior to EU advice. Only 7.1% of their population is fully vaccinated in comparison to our 15.2%. What led you to announce this prior to EU recommendation? Also, in the survey released by the EU, 69% of Greek people had feelings of uncertainty and 42% had feelings of frustration. Can you outline the measures you implemented to relieve these feelings in the interest of your citizens and the overall EU mental well-being?
As mentioned in our national overview, Malta have thoroughly looked after the mental welfare of their citizens. We propose for the consideration of mental health measures, specifically for healthcare professionals, as 1 in 4 doctors are suffering from a form of depression or anxiety during the pandemic. We ask the member states to consider their opinion on this sub-proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now over to Greece.
We first would like to welcome Belgium's support, but we would like to emphasize that rhetoric condemning other members should not be a part of this discussion, and we would like to avoid it at all costs. And although we acknowledge that Denmark has a long and proud history of valuable sovereignty, we ask them to consider the complex needs and concerns of their surrounding member states. Denmark, much like Luxembourg, has utilized curfews and other things that are outlined in Article 6. Our wish is to bring those to our fellow member states to protect their lives and livelihoods.
And we'd also like to rebut Malta about our opening of borders. We want to emphasize that we are at the forefront of the digital green pass, and we believe that this can help to the safety of our citizens. Thank you.
And thank you very much. And thank you everybody for keeping to their times. I think when we come back, if people use their full 45 seconds so we can hear their arguments in depth. And also I'm very conscious that there is a long list of messages in the chat room of people we haven't got to yet. So to be fair to everyone, we will start at the 10:36 message with Sweden, Cyprus, Bulgaria, Spain and Netherlands when we come back, to be fair to everyone gets their opportunity. Now, we are going to take a short break. We'll resume at 11:20. During the break, you can switch off your cameras and your microphones and then switch back your cameras on at around 11:15 because we really do want to begin at 11:20. So again, this means you don't leave the Zoom call. You just turn off your cameras, you turn off your microphones and start coming back at 11:15. And we will begin at 11:20 sharp. Thank you. And thank you. You are welcome back to the next section of our virtual Model Council of the European Union. We have had a very robust debate so far, and we have lots and lots of countries that want to get in and to make their contributions. And we are going to try to make sure that everybody does get an opportunity to participate in this section as well. And if you don't, I will try to bring you in. Also, a request from the judges that if you could use your full 45 seconds when you do come in, because they want to see you teasing out your points. And I think that's a fair point, and it works to your benefit. So to use your allocated time wisely. And again, we have lots of a backlog in terms of the chat room that we have to get to, and I'm sure we will get to everyone in due course. So I am going to kick off proceedings again. And of course, when you're speaking, turn on your mics. When you're not, turn them off. Okay, so we are starting with Sweden. And if we could, Sweden, Cyprus, Bulgaria, Spain, and the Netherlands is the first group I'm going to. Sweden.
So, in response to Italy's earlier comment, how can a junior health minister from a single member state hold such a powerful body accountable? And then in response to Malta, imposing legal penalization against member states will simply lead to more division and destabilization of the EU. The EU was created to benefit member states and not to penalize them. And in terms of mental health, Sweden's unique approach to this pandemic has been successful in staving off many of the more drastic outcomes that you mentioned. And then, along with Czechia, we would like to propose that Article 6 of this regulation be completely axed.
Thank you very much, Sweden, and thank you for filling in your time as well with lots of really strong points. We're now moving to Cyprus.
We agree with Slovakia in relation to the implementation of curfews. Countries such as Croatia and Lithuania say that curfews imposed by the EU go too far. But can we really say any measure goes too far when we are talking about saving lives? 645,412 people have already lost their lives in the EU. Of course, we understand where countries are coming from when they say that they do not want to sacrifice their freedoms. However, when it comes to ensuring the safety of our citizens, wouldn't you agree that we can afford to make a bit of sacrifice, especially if it's only for a temporary measure?
And thank you very much, Cyprus. Also, more strong points as we go into detail into this motion. And we're now moving to Bulgaria.
We strongly agree with Italy saying that science doesn't change from country to country, so restrictions shouldn't either. Bulgaria also has a lot of tourism from bordering countries, such as Greece and Turkey, so we understand that Spain and Portugal find tourism essential, as this is a big part of their economy. However, we find travel impossible during these times of emergency. We'd rather prioritize health over travel. We'd also like to agree with Cyprus that's saying that coming together and strengthening coordination is better, and fragmentation leaves us vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bulgaria. Another speaker in favour of the proposal will be going to Spain and Netherlands. And I just want to alert everyone to the next tranche of speakers after the Netherlands, and that will be Denmark, Slovakia, Belgium, Portugal and Germany. Okay, so we're now going to Spain.
I would like to address Italy's point in relation to curfews and restrictions. Violence over curfews have occurred in Spain and the Netherlands. And these protests, while also causing massive social unrest, spread the virus even further, rendering the curfews just useless. The reception of these restrictions from the EU would not be respected by the Spanish people, and I doubt they would be respected by any of the other member states' people. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Spain. And we're now going to the Netherlands. And after the Netherlands, just again, to advise everyone, we will be going to Denmark, Slovakia, Belgium, Portugal and Germany. Okay, the Netherlands.
Thank you. I'd just like to respond to Lithuania, who posed the question to us. I'd just like to state that data protection is an issue of national importance in the Netherlands. As we said, we'd like to raise concern over Article 6, subsection 1A, part 4, which states that the committee will be responsible for EU-wide contact tracing strategies, and the Netherlands is opposed to this information, to any contact tracing information being in the hands of the committee. Also, I'd like to mention that no one is mentioning this regulation has cross-border implications outside of the European Union. In the regulation, there's no mention of the World Health Organization in the articles. It mentions EU agencies, not the World Health Organization. And we must recognize that this is a problem outside of the EU as well as inside. It's a global problem. And so we have to make sure that we include all of these agencies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Netherlands. And you raised a very important issue of data. We're now moving to Denmark.
Denmark sides with Sweden and Czechia in regards to their one-size-does-not-fit-all approach. Denmark is willing to adopt a dynamic position with regards to the amendment of the legislation, especially Article 5 and Article 6. Because we believe these are the changes that will need to be made in order to have a united EU going forward. We will still stand in favor of our cooperate, not legislate stance, but we will take alternative pathways necessary to ensure the health of our people and unite the countries of the European Union without a completely overseeing EU legislation. And we are willing to take both sides into account and finding a middle ground that would be the best option for all the people in our nations and everyone in the EU. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Denmark, and espousing consensus there. We're now moving to Slovakia, Belgium, Denmark, Portugal, and Germany. So first up is Denmark, or Slovakia, apologies.
First, we would like to thank Latvia for their support. We also would like to point out we agree with Lithuania's 2/3 majority vote, and we would like to challenge Hungary's view on contact tracing, as our country has somewhat tried to set up a system, but it completely failed. And I believe that if we got help from the EU, we could potentially set up a cross-border contact tracing system of some degree. We would also like to challenge Spain's view on the forced vaccines, but we do not have enough time to expand on our point. Thank you for listening.
And I'm sure Slovakia, you will have another opportunity. Thank you very much for raising that. And also a little reminder of the school settings with the teacher notice in the background. Okay, we are now moving to Belgium. Over to Belgium.
Good morning once again. Belgium would like to just speak to everyone in general that this is no longer a matter of each domestic situation. This is on an international scale. These are unprecedented times. So therefore, there has to be unprecedented legislation that is imposed during these times. Yes, it may be difficult, but through cooperation and compromises, we are stronger as a union. If we all chose our cynical interests above the interest of the people, the union would not have gone as far as it's going so far. The health budget has increased by 20%. That would not have happened if it wasn't for compromises and cooperation. Compromise and cooperation is the very essence, is the very spirit of this union. And when countries are talking about civil liberty, talking about their specific countries, these cynical actions is what will diminish the European Union, not bring it up and support those smaller countries that need this funding. It's easy for countries like Spain, Germany, and so on and so forth to mention about about not having this type of legislation, but this type of legislation can help open up economies that are more fragile than theirs. And countries that are bigger need this type of legislation for borders to open up for things such as tourism, which are huge for certain economies. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Belgium. You've raised a number of issues there. We're now moving on to Portugal.
We would like to defer our speaking time.
Okay, that's fair enough. And we'll come back to you, Portugal, just to stay in the background. I'll just come back to you in a minute or two. Okay, that's okay. Okay, and we move on to Germany. And after Germany, I would just like to, just to Portugal. Portugal, do you still want to defer your time, or do you want to go now, Portugal? No, I'll come back to Portugal. We're going to go to Germany, and after Germany, we'll go to Estonia, Cyprus, Slovenia, and France, and we'll also bring Portugal in at the end of that. So first of all, to Germany.
Thank you. Many of the issues proposed by fellow delegates here today can be solved with a simple solution. The issues such as curfews, protests, can all be fixed if we manage to address the fundamental issue with this resolution. That issue is being that it is the HSC that will be coordinating with the Commission in regards to this problem. We believe that having the EU Council deal with this will be much better. Why will it be better? Well, because they will be able to organize a more coordinated response and reopening. The Council is elected representatives of the people. They know what the people want. They can, at the end of the day, the Council is more understanding than the HSC. And as a result, they will protect the people and protect government's sovereignty and best interests. If we do not solve this problem, then there's no point in the rest of this debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy, and a very passionate view there. We're now going to, again, Estonia, Cyprus, Slovenia, France, and we will bring Portugal back in. So we are now going to Estonia.
Can we defer our speaking time to next, please?
Okay, that's fine. So I'll just keep a note of that. I have a few to keep a note of at the moment. So I'm sure Cyprus won't mind. So over to you, Cyprus.
Thank you. As a small nation that is one of the newer member states in the EU, we Cyprus would like to ensure that we will not be overlooked by the committee or by other member states. We therefore support Croatia in their recommendation of increasing the necessary majority to pass legislation to a 70% majority rather than a simple majority of 50%, as we feel this will create more unity within the EU and ensure that every nation is heard. Thank you.
And thank you very much for making your points there. Cyprus, we're now going to Slovenia and France, and after that we will go back to Estonia and Portugal. So to Slovenia.
Firstly, we would like to thank Lithuania for voicing their support of our amendments to Article 6 and 2, which aim to enhance the clarity and effectiveness of this regulation. In order to address some of the concerns expressed by many delegates regarding the extensive power of this committee, and to ensure full transparency and accountability, Slovenia proposes an insertion of a clause in the draft regulation to ensure the functioning of the committee is reviewed in full after a set period. In addition, the committee must report on an annual basis to the council, and the council will undertake an in-depth review of all aspects of the committee after a period of 3 years.
Lastly, Slovenia would like to reiterate the importance of arriving at a consensus in regard to matters of international threats to health. Where this cannot be achieved, we support Croatia's proposal of a 2/3 majority, as we strongly feel that this would accurately represent the interests of smaller member states such as ourselves and Cyprus.
Thank you very much, Slovenia, for going into detail on your amendments and how it would work. We're now moving over to France. And to unmute.
So the delegation of France would like to reiterate the point made by Belgium that members of the European Union need to cooperate and communicate effectively in order to successfully tackle the current coronavirus pandemic. We believe that Belgium and France's views are very similar, and
So we had some technical issues there, France. Do you want to continue or will I come back to you?
Could you come back, please? Thank you.
That's not at all. Okay. So I'm going to go to Portugal next. If Portugal next. And then we can go back to Estonia and France.
We would like to state our support of Spain's position in advocating unity between the member states with a consideration of each country's distinct position. Although we would like to oppose Belgium's view of complete submission under the EU regulations, because as stated by many other delegations, one size does not fit all. Hence, we propose more power is given to each domestic health service with consideration of different progress rates. And currently, Portugal holds the lowest rate of infections with an incident rate of 68 per 100,000 over 14 days.
Thank you very much, Portugal, for coming back. And now we're going over to Estonia, and then we will go to France. But Estonia, because we do want to go through the list. So Estonia, we will head over to you.
And we agree with Belgium that it is a huge international scale, and we need to look at things differently to prevent legislation that have been implemented. According to a public opinion survey commissioned by the EU, Parliament 17 out of 27 member states agree that the economic damage is greater than the health benefits. We agree with Greece that we all need to cooperate with the Health Secretary Committee to produce a united approach to combating pandemics. First and foremost, the neither are Belgium that these are extraordinary times before we need to more frequently. Thank you.
And thank you. And to be fair, Estonia has brought up an issue that many people are bringing up, the need for consensus and to find a middle ground that everybody can come together. We're now going back to France. But after France, I want to give everyone some advice on where we're going to. So after France, we will be going to Malta, Finland, Bulgaria, Czechia, and Luxembourg. So Malta, Finland, Bulgaria, Czechia, and Luxembourg. So over to France now.
Thank you for coming back to us. The delegation of France would like to reiterate the point made by Belgium that members of the European Union need to cooperate and communicate effectively in order to successfully tackle the current coronavirus pandemic. We believe that our stance is similar to Belgium, and these similarities stress the need for solidarity that we are urging all nation states that are present today to consider. We would like to emphasize this point to the delegation of Sweden and Spain, who are underestimating this need for solidarity. Thank you.
And thank you very much, France. Again, that solidarity, consensus, those words coming into play as the debate matures. So next up, Malta, Finland, Bulgaria, Czechia, and Luxembourg. So we're going to Malta.
We would like to take this opportunity to clear up to Greece that we are not dismissing other member states nor excluding their points of view through penalisation. We are merely trying to come to the best resolution possible. We would also like to clarify that if countries by their own choice do not follow the proposed guidelines, we propose that their name should be removed temporarily from the EU Digital Green Pass and fines should be imposed through taxes. We stand with Poland in the fact that one size does not fit all, and we would like to emphasise to Sweden and put your minds to rest that under Article 206 of the TFEU, a committee establishes fines per individual country.
A question also to Slovakia, Serbia, and Estonia. As you know, Malta have the highest vaccine rollout at 25%. The EU has approved and distributed over 100 million doses of biotech Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. However, it seems Slovakia, Serbia, and Estonia have gone against the EU precautions and are using the Russian Sputnik vaccine instead. Can you explain why your government have gone against the EU in this situation? And also to Slovenia, the Slovenian Prime Minister Janez Janša said, God created the virus to protect the more advanced white race from corruption. Virus that infects just certain people, races, and individuals with certain characteristics. This is therefore the targeted clearance, just like how people get rid of harmful species, molds, and weeds. Do you think the Slovenian citizens have the same racist view as their leader? And do you think his influence has caused confusion over the virus? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lots for others to mull over there. We're going straight now to Finland as the clock. We've 5 minutes left before closing statements, and I am going to prioritise those who have maybe not come in. But first of all, we're going to Finland.
Finland, alongside other globalised economies across the EU, is acutely aware of the threats protectionism poses to resource supply during periods of public health emergency. Global pandemics impact international trade significantly. Considering the increase in demand for health-related resources during these times, such as vaccines and PPE, it is paramount that the EU implement robust legislation to guarantee resources during these troubled times. Finland's economy, alongside other member states, does not produce these resources and relies on foreign imports for these vital products. In response to Denmark, we would just like to ask how exactly they plan to substantiate their cooperation if they do not intend to engage in legislation regarding this. The idea that we would have to surrender our sovereignty as a nation is an unfounded fear and is the same old tired myth that was peddled by British Conservatives when they voted to leave the EU in 2016. If anything, it will consolidate our sovereignty as it will allow us to effectively protect ourselves from foreign threats. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Finland. And we're now going to Bulgaria.
We agree with Malta that the mental health of the population, especially medical services, has been impacted. We also agree with the point Sweden made in their opening statement. The EU's vaccine strategy is disastrous. Bulgaria is the best example of this, as we have the lowest vaccination rate in the EU, which is 45% by the end of 2021. Our country having administered 9.74 doses per 100 citizens, the lowest statistical rate for any EU country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now going to Czechia.
This is reflecting the actual beliefs of the country, but we have observed that on average, those who are the biggest advocates for the implementation of this regulation are representing countries that are not landlocked. For you, border closures may not seem like a drastic concept. However, for Czechia, we depend on our connections to continue to thrive as a country. As Denmark previously stated, we believe in cooperation, not legislation.
It must also be noted that border closures are not always the most advantageous response. Take COVID-19, for example. The World Health Organization has recommended to keep borders open in order to avoid people entering irregularly and going unchecked, while also ensuring that we can continue normality as often as possible. The mental well-being of people must also be considered and prioritized just as much as their physical health. We would also like to reiterate our agreement with Sweden on axing Article 6 and the complete alteration of the aforementioned proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're now going to Luxembourg.
We agree with Czechia, as we are also landlocked and we need other countries to understand this issue also. Luxembourg stands with Croatia and Lithuania's suggestion of a 70% majority when it comes to voting on changes. We believe if it was a 100% majority, we would never get anywhere, and if it was a 50% majority, it would be unfair. So 70% is the most suitable option. We would also like to support the amendment proposed by Slovenia and believe that this would give good oversight to the committee reviewing their powers and watching the interests of smaller nations like Luxembourg and Slovenia. As seen today, a lot of countries have the same views, and we believe that a consensus should be possible out of our debate today, and we encourage everyone to work in unity as it is so important during this health crisis.
Okay, now we have a few minutes left and I'm going to try to get to countries that have not spoken during this session. So Greece, Hungary, Ireland and Austria. First, Greece, Hungary, Ireland and Austria. And to use your time effectively, because as you can see, we've really teased out more of the points in the latter half of this debate, and I think it's worked very effectively. So Greece, Hungary, Ireland and Austria. And we look forward to hearing all of their points. So Greece.
In response to Malta, Greece must again emphasize that the only way in which this motion will be successful in increasing cooperation between member states and as such saving lives will be working together to find common ground. We also want to emphasize that the economic impact will only be worsened if fines are enforced. We also want to point out that this discussion concerns our future and not our past, and each member state has done its best to protect its citizens and its economies. Though it is a complex situation, we believe that failure, including our own, has come from a lack of a unified response. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greece. We're now moving to Hungary.
As other countries have mentioned, we have to consider the trust among the population of the member states with the tracking and the respecting the rules. And as a result, from the 3 surveys carried out last year from the EU, all the answers were very different about the current pandemic.
And that's why we have hoped that the population will follow the rules set by the EU. And also, we think that the economic needs are very different. And also, as Ireland mentioned a couple of minutes ago, that maybe the hotel quarantine works for Ireland as an island, but it wouldn't work for us, Hungary, or other member states such as Germany.
Thank you very, very much. And I'm now going to move to Ireland, Austria, and we're going to get Lithuania and Romania in. We're going to run it up to 10-2, just so we can get more who haven't spoken during this session. So Ireland would welcome your contribution.
Go back to Cyprus's point that they mentioned a few minutes ago, we understand why you would believe a curfew to be for the greater good,
But as we've seen with the pushback in Spain, it may require severe penalties to enforce, which could lead to further unrest. With more time, we would have liked to inquire what you would do to make sure that such restrictions go smoothly. But what we'd like to say is that it has been, apologies, I've lost my point. That's all I'd like to say, thank you.
And can I say to you, I did that once professionally, and someone came back to me and it was a courtesy and it was a good lesson. So no one should be anyway embarrassed. If you say it front up, it's the best way to do it. And you made a very strong contribution throughout the day. So we're moving on to, I think we have now Austria. We have had Ireland. Have we had Ireland? We're moving to, sorry, apologies, we're moving to Malta. Or Austria, sorry, Austria. Just Austria for the moment, if you continue Austria, and we will keep. Austria, I think, is having difficulty. So what I might do is move to Lithuania and Romania, and I'm just going to keep a check. Lithuania and Romania, if you could come on board, Lithuania and Romania. I think there's a problem with Austria's connection at the moment, and these things happen. We all know it. So Lithuania.
We in Lithuania would really like to strongly suggest cooperation in between the honourable states. And everyone, I would suggest that we do axe Article 6.1a VI. Also, we'd like to talk to Slovakia and agree that cross-border contact tracing is a great idea, and that it should be seriously thought about, as it can save many lives in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we're going to Romania now. Thank you.
Thank you. Romania would like to support Slovenia to amend the wording of Article 6, Part 1. To Lithuania and Croatia, we agree to the amendment of Article 5, Part 3, and that a majority of 70% should be required to enforce the proposal. We would ask all countries to eliminate all of Article 6, excluding the contact tracing and isolation measures that might allow another pandemic and prevent another economic crisis. To Ireland, we must remind you that the effectiveness of the strategy in New Zealand of closing borders is not comparable to the EU. Many Romanian citizens work in neighbouring countries, and it is also vital to Romania that the green corridors remain open for the movement of essential goods. With all due respect to the Irish delegation, but Ireland also has a soft border. How would the delegation close the Northern Irish border under its recommendations? Also, France claims that harsher restrictions are supported in Romania, yet there have recently been anti-lockdown protests, and further restrictions being imposed, especially from outside Romania, will make these protests more widespread. Thank you.
And thank you very much. I'm now going to go through the list to see if those who have not spoke, we have a few minutes and let's take it. I'm going to raise Italy and Poland, I think, to give them an opportunity in this session to speak. And if anyone hasn't spoken in this session, please let us know. I also saw Italy, Poland, Latvia, I believe, has not spoken in this session. And Austria, some confusion, I think, has Austria just spoken there? It has, and Croatia. So first of all, let us go to Poland and Latvia and Italy. So Italy, you're up.
The Italian delegation wishes to step back and highlight some important opinions of EU citizens for all delegations to consider. Half of Europeans are not satisfied with the EU measures in response to the pandemic, and 57% believe there should be more solidarity between the EU member states while fighting the pandemic. Finally, 2/3 of EU citizens agree that the EU needs to have more competences to deal with these crises, contrary to the claims of Sweden and Croatia. We should give this EU committee the tools it needs to fight cross-border threats. This is what most Europeans want us to do.
In response to Sweden, Czechia, and Denmark, this legislation doesn't impose a one-size-fits-all policy. This bill would not mean all regions have the same rules regardless of cases or hospitalization rates. All it does is gives the power to the EU Health Committee, and they would apply public health measures on regions based on the levels of cases and hospitalizations. This committee includes Europe's best scientists and will find the best solutions for every region. In response to Lithuania, we believe curfews should be imposed by the EU on a consistent basis in accordance to the science and data. And in response to Denmark, we believe that COVID doesn't respect borders because land borders can be easily crossed on an interconnected continent like Europe.
Thank you very much, Italy. You had lots to respond to and to put it up to others. Okay, we're now going to Poland and Latvia. I think Croatia has not come in this section, and just as a question mark over Austria, have they come in or not? And they can clarify that in the chat room. So over to you, Poland.
Many member states, especially Belgium and France, have expressed their need for solidarity and unity within this legislation. However, this past year alone, we've already achieved so much. Together, Norwegian, Romanian, Polish doctors have flown into different countries who are hit the worst to help. Together, we mobilized funding to help smaller businesses and even directed €3 billion to the most socially vulnerable. And we did it without the need for exhaustive legislation. And so, we agree with our fellow member states, Austria, Netherlands, Denmark, and Czechia, that a directive would be a better approach, as now we really need to discuss our road to recovery as the European Union. Thank you.
And thank you very much for your contribution as we begin to end this section of the debate. Latvia, over to you for your final thoughts before closing statements.
In response to Germany's statement that the HSC would remain inactive, it's important to account for their current limited powers in regard to each member state's government. As many countries have done well with current issues, the HSC's increased power would ensure that each country would have a coordinated response that is tailored to the needs of each member state. It's important to remember that not every state has the means to facilitate the proposed measures currently. However, if the EU has more power, they will be able to provide more financial aid to countries with less medical facilities such as ours. Latvia has enforced mask mandates, social distancing, curfews, contact tracing, travel bans, and even strict travel restrictions, and have a death rate of 1.7 daily compared to the European average of 1.3. It has shown to work, and that's why we are in full support of the current proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we really appreciate that contribution. We're now going to Croatia.
We would like to thank Lithuania, Greece, Sweden, Romania, Luxembourg, Slovakia, Cyprus, and Slovenia, who have all come out in support for our original proposal to amend the simple majority to 70%. These member states seem to be in favour of a 2/3 majority, and that is certainly something that we would support. And we feel that there has been a lot of fruitless debate today, and Croatia wishes to move forward. We would like to call on all member states to place in the chat function whether they think they would support our Croatian motion. We would like to also ask the Netherlands to clarify, or I suppose explain a little bit more, their proposal to remove contact tracing from Article 6 due to data protection concerns. This is certainly something that we would support and are looking forward to hearing more about in this debate. We would also like to ask Slovenia or put to Slovenia that we would support the addition of their clause to review every 3 years and to announce for this report to be sent to the Commission. And finally, if we can just all if we can get as many people in the chat as possible just to move this debate forward, because we feel like there's been a lot of chit chat going around, not very much movement, and this is really what we're here for today, to move forward with this debate, and we feel that the chat function is probably the best way to do this.
I also have to move forward Croatia, and to be honest, the chat room is chock-a-block, and I do see there's a lot of support for Croatia now coming in and for that motion. But I'm going to move to Austria, because I would like to state to everyone, we've tried to get everyone in each section, but the chat room has just been so busy. You are all so eager to talk and to use your voice at the table that it has been impossible sometimes to see everyone at the same time. But we're delighted that we'll be able to move now finally to Austria.
Thank you very much. Just to respond to France's statistic that 54% of Austrians believe that more power should be given to the EU. However, in the most recent Public Opinion in Times of COVID-19 survey, round 3, only 32% of Austrian respondents show satisfaction with the EU's competences with dealing with the EU with the pandemic in the EU, and only 32% of Austria hold a positive view of the EU. We strongly value the Austrians show a strong support of national power in decision making. So while we are never against cooperation and coordination across the EU, we believe power and decision making should remain with Austria.
To build on that, and to build on also our theme of maintaining sovereignty, we sympathize with Malta and their desire to benefit from tourism. Our own tourism industry is very important to us. In 2018, it accounted for
6.5% of our GDP, according to the Austrian tourism satellite account, and brought in 25 billion euro. We would also like to respond to Cyprus's question as to whether we can ever go too far when it comes to saving lives. The simple answer to that is yes, because saving lives is not the only important thing. We also are concerned with quality of life. That is very important. There's absolutely no point in saving lives if all it involves is people not dying rather than living.
Thank you very much. And that brings to an end this part of the session. And I think everybody has got an opportunity to contribute in that section of the debate. Now, we're now moving very quickly to closing remarks. And each member state will have an opportunity, like they did at the beginning, to make a closing remark. And it will be in the order of the original opening statement. So again, we're starting with Slovenia and we're ending with Portugal. You have 45 seconds and we're limiting it to 45 seconds. And just to let you know that our two judges now are going away and they'll still be listening, but they'll be conferring and they may not be on screen, but they'll be conferring and listening to what you're saying as you go through your closing statement. So use this time to drive home your message. So I'd like to call on Slovenia. Slovenia.
Hi. As we have seen during this debate, coordination is an integral part of the Union's response to global health crises. It is evident that the EU collective action holds a far greater negotiation strength than that of individual member states. And when dealing with crises of this nature, responses need to be consistent, coherent, and coordinated. In order to strengthen mutual trust, which is a prerequisite for improving effectiveness, it is essential that this response is agile and respectful of the interests of all, but particularly smaller member states. We therefore stand by our stance that the EU is better equipped to respond to cross-border health threats than individual member states, and that the powers of the Health Security Committee should be expanded.
Thank you very much, Slovenia, for your closing remarks. We're moving now to France.
As health ministers of France, we would like to reiterate our stance that we are in favour of more coordination at EU level in order to tackle cross-border health crises such as the COVID-19 pandemic. We would like to emphasise EU member states to consider the opinions of their people, as we believe that certain EU members have failed to do so. We would also like to continue to emphasise our points that solidarity, communication, and cooperation is vital in order for the purpose of the EU to be effective. Finally, to quote the official journal of the European Union article titled "Communication from Commission," delaying this process beyond what is needed for reasons of public health would put a heavy burden on not only the functioning of the single market, but also the lives of millions of EU citizens deprived of the benefits of the freedom of movement, which is a key achievement of the European Union. Thank you.
And thank you very much. We're moving along to Czechia now.
We would like to close our contribution to this debate by disclosing our position in relation to this regulation. Czechia agrees with Sweden, Denmark, Slovakia, Romania, Cyprus, Latvia, Poland, and Croatia regarding the cross-border approach and the axing of Article 6, including the complete rewording of the proposal. We believe a consensus is necessary, and this consensus is an amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Czechia. And we're moving along now to Sweden and their closing remarks.
Fellow delegates, as Sweden stated in our opening, we simply cannot agree to this proposal in its current form. As discussed today, we would like to see the following. Article 6A axed, similar to what Czechia has stated. The removal of a requirement for curfews, as they only lead to violence, spreading the virus further, rendering them counterproductive, which is in agreement with Spain and Portugal. And lastly, we close by saying that civil liberties are the foundation of nations, and we cannot simply dismiss them. Fellow delegates, while we may not agree on many of the points discussed today, we can agree that all we want is the best for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we move to Spain.
Thank you. The Spanish government have the utmost love and respect for our EU, and we would like to discuss and cooperate, and we would like more discussion and cooperation surrounding this issue. However, we must draw a line. The current pandemic and any future health threat has forced us to impact on the civil liberties of our people. However, as a Spanish native and as a representative of my country here today, we must assert our right to dictate the sacrifices of our own people. We stand united with all our fellow member states in the face of this sickness, but the laws of my sovereign state, compromising the freedom of my people, must remain the sole decision of the Spanish government. We hope our fellow member states can understand our position. After all, we cannot have unity without compassion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then we're moving now to Belgium.
We propose an alternate solution that we think includes many of the proposals and issues brought up by our other member states, including that of Slovenia and Croatia. We propose that the HSC will propose legislation to the Council of the European Union, which that can then choose to pass or not to pass it. We think that this reduces the powers that the HSC have, that many states have brought issues with, considering that the people of each member state shall be heard correctly due to the elected nature of the officials within the European Union. Although Belgium does think that our proposal is more beneficial to the EU and every member state, including all the small member states that may be forgotten at some stages. We do wish to reach a consensus, so we will agree with Croatia if no one else will agree with us. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Belgium. We're now moving to Hungary.
Hungary stay with our opinion that we don't agree with the proposal as it is at the moment. We understand the countries being in favor for the proposal and agree that we need more responsibilities on an EU level related to such an important topic as our health. But as mentioned several times from different members, there are some changes we have to make in the proposal as it is now. We have to specify Article 6 and 5, and we agree with several other member states that we need a 70% majority to pass it, and also we have to make adjustments in Article 6 as it is now.
Thank you very much, Hungary, and we're now moving to Poland.
Poland feels that large issues such as vaccine hesitancy and disinformation must be addressed before more competence is given to EU institutions to protect the livelihoods and health of EU citizens. We already have initiatives in place to target this pandemic. What matters is how we utilize it. We must target concerns within member states such as working conditions, loss of learning, and lower income groups that have suffered the most. The EU has already gotten approval for a recovery fund already, and Poland believes that legislation is not the way, but rather beginning an immediate road to recovery. We believe that cohesion within this pandemic cannot be coerced by legislation. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Poland. We're now going to Denmark.
As we have stated previously, our view on cooperation instead of a legislation is the only viable option at the current state of the legislation. Many countries in favor of the legislation, Denmark included, have the liberty of using local coasts to export goods and build up an economy. We insist that the larger countries like Belgium and France exercise empathy and to consider a large amendment to the legislation that removes Article 6 and will change Article 5 and local curfews, and will give landlocked and smaller countries the ability to rebuild their economies. We implore countries to adopt Denmark's COVID-19 containment strategy that is heavily focused on continuous testing and regional or national contact tracing. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Denmark. Now moving to Cyprus.
First of all, we would like to thank all countries for providing an engaging debate. To sum up Cyprus's stance on this regulation, we still support this proposal. However, we also still believe that amendments should be made to the regulation that gives countries greater flexibility. We believe that this would address the point that was continuously raised, that one size does not fit all. We urge all member states to consider this.
This is also why we still disagree with Malta when they propose penalising member states if they don't follow the regulations to the T, as countries such as ourselves and Ireland are divided islands, and as such face unique difficulties. We feel that imposing penalties would be unfair and against the spirit of the EU, and that it would pit the more able nations against the ones who have struggled the most during this pandemic. Thank you for listening.
And thank you for keeping to your time. Next to Ireland.
Madam Chair, judges, and fellow delegates, it has been acknowledged by every member state today that in terms of serious cross-border threats to health, the COVID-19 pandemic is unprecedented in modern times. Even though there's been many disagreements today over everything within legislations, there's been many disagreements today, especially Ireland with Cyprus over Article 6 and the curfews in place, as we've seen with the violence in Portugal and Spain. We agree with them. However, with their majority vote over 70%, we feel that they are right to advocate for that. Apologies, I've lost my place again. I'd like to say thank you for listening today, and that even though there's many things that we may disagree upon, we all strive towards the common goal of coming up with a solution against this pandemic. Thank you.
And can I say, Arnold, that was a lovely way to sum up a contribution, that we are looking for a middle ground and a consensus. Okay, we're moving to Lithuania.
Firstly, let me thank all of those here for their participation. All opinions have been given mostly respectfully, which has been appreciated. We would like to again point out the clear necessity for this proposal, and we have to appreciate all of the amendments that have been proposed. I would like to again thank everyone who has supported ours. While we understand and respect opposing positions, we cannot agree and still think that this is the best way forward. Ačiū.
Thank you very much, Lithuania. And we are now moving to Greece.
We thank our fellow member states and the facilitators of this event. Some excellent points have been made. Over 3/4 of Greek citizens agree with the statement that the EU should have more competencies to deal with crises such as the current pandemic. And those figures are consistent across the EU. We need more solidarity within the Union. We agree with the points made by Italy regarding this pandemic and future health crises having no borders. In line with Belgium, we search for consensus. The proposal must be adapted. As said, the simple majority vote should be changed. Outright removing Article 6, in Greece's opinion, would strip the committee of its power. But we believe it must undergo serious change in order to respect the needs of all member states. Thank you.
And thank you. Now moving on to Italy.
The delegation of the Italian Republic is satisfied with our constructive discussions today. We believe that further EU integration on threats to public health will reclaim the freedom of movement enshrined in the 1957 Treaty of Rome. This will reopen the tourism industry, which is extremely important to us and many other members of the EU. There is a bright future for this union. We have the support of our citizens, with only 21% holding a negative view of the EU. We are nowhere near a perfect union, but if we pass this bill, we will move closer to that ideal. In the spirit of consensus, we will back the amendment for a 2/3 majority, as we believe unity and cooperation is the only way forward for our union. Let's save lives. Let's pass this legislation. Grazie.
Thank you very much. A strong note there to finish your speech. Latvia, up next.
Data protection has been previously highlighted by the Netherlands, and though it is important, contact tracing has been proved to be an effective preventative measure in places such as South Korea, where the COVID response was increasingly positive. The prioritization of contact tracing would lead into further preventative measures in the future as a response to any cross-border threats. With the help of the EU, we can improve preventative measures that need to be supported by a collective, a middleman, by the EU. And to reach our goals, we can't just cut out the middleman. We need to stop treating every threat as a malignant tumor that must be cut out. By working with the EU, we're not losing our individuality, but strengthening our nations. We need the middleman. We need each other. We continue to be in favor of the motion, but we are open to collaboration and to change, especially the proposition made by Slovenia to change the wording of the motion. Thank you all for this wonderful debate, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
And thank you. We're now moving to Luxembourg.
Luxembourg would like to thank all member states here today for listening to our concerns and the issue raised.
We hope that the EU can work in unity, create a safer and more effective European Union. We understand that curfews bring difficulty and unrest in society, but it is the step in the right direction. Luxembourg has shown that it is possible to have a country free of COVID if all the necessary restrictions are put in place. We can get through this crisis as long as we work closely with one another. As a result of this, Article 6, Subclause A needs to remain and be closely monitored. We stand with this proposal, and we also fully support the need to keep free movement across our borders. Finally, we commend both Croatia and Lithuania for achieving their goal. We know that this amendment will benefit the EU in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Luxembourg. Moving to the Netherlands.
The Netherlands take issue with countries who oppose this regulation, such as Sweden. We'd like to reiterate that the committees consist of representatives from national governments across the EU. It is not managed by the European Commission. The Netherlands have changed their views on the proposal of a 70% majority. We now agree with Croatia and the many other countries on this issue.
The Netherlands is still broadly in favour of this regulation. However, we would like to respond to Croatia, and we reiterate our opposition to the entirety of Article 6A, including the reference to cross-border contact tracing, as we believe this is an affront to data protection in Europe. Yes, contact tracing should be conducted, but it should be the responsibility of national governments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Netherlands. And we're now moving to Slovakia.
We hope that we as Slovakia have convinced you of why we're in favour of a European Health Union. Our aim is that you accept our points as to why a European Health Union would not only benefit members of the EU, but also countries surrounding the EU members. We aspire that this will result in an even more unified EU as the formation of the European Health Union to help all countries that are members of the EU and encouraging new members to join. We understand some countries' views on certain proposals, but overall we still hold our ground, and we believe that the whole of the EU will greatly benefit from this proposition, but only if we work together as a union. We'd also like to thank Czech, Poland, Denmark, and Sweden for agreeing with our views. Thank you.
And thank you. And we're moving to Malta.
In response to Greece, 6.8% of Greece's GDP relies on tourism in comparison to 12.8% of ours. We definitely understand the economic element of penalisations, but we thank them for their interaction. We also would like to thank Czechia and Bulgaria for your consideration of mental health, and Austria for your sympathy regarding tourism.
Despite hearing what each of the other delegates have had to say, our position remains the same. There is no question that a coordinated EU approach is the only viable option to tackle this. As Minister Byrne said earlier, coordination makes us stronger in the face of crisis. As we outlined, we are more than in favour of the increased powers if there is an assurance that all other member states will take responsibility and act wisely based on EU advice. We stand by our decision to prioritise the mental health of our citizens at this time and are disappointed by the reaction of other member states to this just as life-threatening crisis. We hope that today we will have inspired other delegates to take more action on the suicide epidemic that our countries face on a daily basis. We are confident that we have accurately represented the views of Malta, and we would like to thank each of the member states for their involvement today. We look forward to our continual progression as a cohesive team. Grazie.
Thank you. Over to Estonia.
After listening to all the different arguments, we are still in favour of this motion. Article 6 needs to be agreed and executed correctly. Strict regulations, including face masks, hotel quarantine, and social distancing measures, need to be sanctioned by the EU countries. Coordination between the EU and its member states should be as one. Estonia thinks and believes that the EU should prioritise enough medical supplies for everyone, funding for vaccine developments, and to prioritise improving cooperation between researchers across the EU. Estonia's top spending priority is economic recovery and new business opportunities. However, we need to ensure all coordinate with a proper directive and legislation to ensure we control any future pandemics or crises in the future. We should adopt this motto: you are either supporting the vision or supporting division. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Estonia. Moving to Bulgaria.
Adjudicators and health ministers, in conclusion, we Bulgaria, along with several other member states, are in favour of this proposal. It is unfair for each country to decide on their own border restrictions because that border is shared with at least one other country. Just like Greece, we fully support the digital green certificate. However, unfortunately, Bulgarians will be lacking these certificates due to low administered vaccinations. As stated earlier, Bulgaria is an upper middle income country, so we depend on EU contributions for a vaccination rollout. Bulgaria has a lot of tourism from bordering countries like Greece and Turkey. However, we disagree with Spain and Portugal because we prioritize health over travel. We fully support the proposal, including Article 6. We believe that these measures are essential in these extraordinary times. A survey carried out in Bulgaria showed that only 32% of people were satisfied with government actions, which is also why we support the proposal of the EU. Thank you.
And thank you, Bulgaria. We're moving now to Austria. Austria, we may have some difficulty gaining Austria. We will move along. Oh, Austria, there you are. Austria.
Sincerest apologies, we're having some internet problems. Just to conclude, I think today has been a very productive debate on listening to everyone's points.
Okay, Austria are still having some technical issues, and we can come back to get their closing comments. I think we may bring in Romania at this moment and go back to Austria. So if we have Romania. Okay, Austria, we might just go to Romania and come back to you just to sort out the technical difficulties. Romania.
Thank you. The delegation of Romania would like to thank all of our fellow delegations for their attention and time. We have learned a lot from our experience here today. However, all the same, we choose to stand by our position in that the individual national governments would be most efficient at implementing most measures, excluding quarantine and isolation measures such as those recommended in Article 6, which should be overseen by the EU. We believe that whilst we've seen a lot of statistics today showing people's dissatisfaction with the EU's response to COVID-19, but we must remember that we have learned many lessons from this pandemic. To confirm, Romania agrees wholeheartedly that cooperation and a strengthened health security committee is vital. We as a union must trust that national governments can put in place restrictions that are right for them. We would like to see this proposal passed today with our aforementioned amendments. And in the words of Jean-Claude Juncker, the European Union has decades of experience in overcoming crises and has always emerged stronger after. Thank you very, very much.
And thank you for that uplifting note. We're now going back to Austria.
Apologies for all of the technical difficulties. Today's debate has been quite productive in hearing the points of views of all of the member states, and many valid points have been brought up around the proposal. No one today has truly objected to the necessity of dialogue and cooperation between countries. However, the way we go about it has been of great debate. Austria holds firm on our position that this regulation is not the best way to go about this cooperation. And we believe that while we believe in the spirit of the proposal, the power and decision-making must remain with Austria and this is not a debate of sovereignty, it is a debate of where the power and decision-making is most effective. And we do not believe the EU has the greatest ability to deal with legislation that will be put in place on the ground level of our population. Thank you.
And thank you, Austria, for overcoming all those technical difficulties to deliver your speech. Well done there. Okay, we're now going to Finland.
The delegation of Finland would like to express gratitude to all fellow delegations for these insightful discussions, touching on a wealth of issues that affect Finland as well as other member states. Again, we would like to consolidate our perspective as a small, globalized economy, that resource security is paramount during public health emergencies. Border security is also a prime concern with regard to curbing the spread of infectious diseases such as COVID-19, as well as a host of other issues.
The very foundations of the EU are substantiated through member state cooperation and coordination. These qualities have brought the EU to become the body it is today. It is vital that we maintain these as priority throughout legislative discussion. After this intense debate, we would like to draw attention to the Finnish sauna, which has been added to the UNESCO Heritage List in 2018 as a means of relaxation following this impassioned discussion. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Finland. We are now moving to Croatia.
To conclude the Croatian contribution, through direct messaging and general discussion in the chat, we are delighted to announce that we have reached a majority consensus for the Croatian amendment to Article 5.3 to change the current proposal edit from a simple majority to 2/3. Curfews have also been a key issue for us in Croatia and several other member states. We support the movement to axe Article 6, and we look forward to further debate around the issue at our next council meeting. We agree with the spirit of this regulation, but not its current form. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Croatia. Now we move to Germany.
Honourable Chair, the COVID-19 pandemic was unprecedented. However, the next pandemic will be precedented. Today, Germany suggested the most comprehensive and effective method to learn from the situation and combat the next pandemic. What did Germany do? We suggested that the EU Council would be the body to ensure coordination between EU member states, and we suggested many reasons why this should be the case. Firstly, the EU Council has multiple briefs, including the economic brief. This would mean it could deal with the clash between certain issues such as health and the economy. We also suggested that since it was elected representatives on the EU Council, it would be a more palatable idea for the people. The buy-in is necessary for for restrictions to work, and the EU Council ensures this. Lastly, Germany would like to point out that we disagree with the idea of the 70% majority. Even if Germany finds itself in the 30% minority, we do not want to lose our civil liberties. That is the most invaluable human rights that we deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Germany. And finally, we are now going to Portugal to close off the closing statements. Portugal, you're most welcome.
We would like to end our contribution to this debate by stating Portugal is in favour of a coordinated EU response with the necessary changes made to Article 5 and 6. For example, the questioning of the travel ban. Not only would this negatively affect our economy because of the strong reliance on tourism, but it also violates the free movement of people. We would also like to reiterate our proposal of a more domestic power, considering that Portugal also has the lowest case rate in the EU. Although we support many regulations stated in the proposal, we acknowledge the need for changes and agree with the majority of 70%. We would also like to extend our support to Estonia. We encourage the return of free travel and with the testing process and introduction of the Green Pass. This means we will continue to take necessary precautions while recovering and moving forward as a nation as well as a member state of the European Union. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Portugal. And that concludes the closing remarks and all of the debates. And I have to say, very high standard. The tone of the debate was very respectful. There was different voices, different perspectives, but everybody articulated them at such a high standard. And there were some themes that came through, obviously acting collectively versus maintaining national sovereignty, maintaining civil liberties, and ultimately saving lives and how to best do that. It was great to see so many amendments put down and people to debate them and tease them out, because that reflects the political reality on the ground of introducing legislation that they may change through the course of negotiations. Also, big themes were curfews, penalties, data protection, and I could go on. And there were lots of key messages. Unprecedented times requires unprecedented legislation, cooperation, not legislation, and we cannot have unity without compassion, while others cited coordination makes us stronger in the face of a crisis. But everybody articulated in a respectful and very clear manner their positions. And it is great that they did so without so many technical difficulties. Now, I would not like to be the next people who are coming on screens. They are the judges. And I would like to thank Mary McCaughey of the European Foundation for the Improvement of Living and Working Conditions, and Noelle O'Connell, the Executive Director of the European Movement Ireland, because they have to decide the winners. So I am very glad that I can hand over to Noelle on this occasion, who's going to call forward and to announce the winners on behalf of the two judges.
Thank you very much, Martina. And can I just say a massive thank you to all the schools, to all our 27 schools, our 27 member states. What a fantastic debate you have engaged in this morning. It was incredible. And a big thanks to Martina for so expertly chairing it, and to all the tech colleagues and colleagues in the Commission for their support and engagement, and in actually making the traditional model EU Council continue in the virtual world, notwithstanding these unprecedented times that we're in. And the success of today's event is due in no small part and measure to the caliber and the quality and the commitment and the passion that you all demonstrated in representing your country's perspectives today. So you truly are not only a credit to yourselves, to your schools, to your teachers, and you did not make the job or the task at hand easy for Mary and I. Mary and I have had the honor of judging this competition for many years. And this was probably one of the hardest and the most difficult, because there really wasn't percentage points between about 8 schools. So exceptionally this year, we are going to depart from what we have done previously, because it wouldn't have been fair in terms of giving honourable mentions, because quite honestly, you all were so fantastic in your outputs that we just couldn't narrow it down. But there's at least 8 of you that were absolutely brilliant, and great credit to you and all the effort and hard work you put in representing and putting forward so passionately and so eloquently your country's debates. But with much difficulty and credit to them, we do have our top 3 schools. So what I'm going to do is, and on behalf of Mary and myself, I am going to announce we're going to go 3rd, 2nd and 1st. And congratulations to these schools for representing their country's perspectives and putting forward a great debate. In 3rd place, representing Croatia, St. Columba's College, Stranraer, County Donegal. So congratulations, Croatia. Very well done. You were fantastic.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We had an amazing day. Thank you.
Thank you. So from all the way in Donegal, so fantastic. So Croatia in 3rd place. And then we go not too far away from Croatia to 2nd place. And huge congratulations in 2nd place to Greece, represented by St. Mary's College in Naas, County Kildare. Congratulations, Greece.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And finally, in 1st place, representing the Netherlands, St. Joseph's Secondary School, Tulla in County Clare. Congratulations, St. Joseph's.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
We would love to, hopefully next year, we'll all be back in Dublin Castle and we'll be able to chat with you and congratulate you properly. But if I may, on behalf of Mary and myself, thank you for making our job as difficult as ever in judging today's Model Council. You were all fantastic. And there were too many of you to narrow it down for the honourable mentions, but there's another 8 of you. And in the virtual world, that means a huge amount. So congratulations and thank you to you all. Martina, I hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Noelle, and congratulations to all our winners, to the Netherlands, to Greece and to Croatia, and to everybody else for taking part, because it really was a high standard. And I wouldn't have been able to do what they have just done in relation to picking out winners, because it was so high, the standard. Now, we're delighted today to be joined by the MEP Grace O'Sullivan, who represents the South constituency, and she has joined us this morning and will announce the prizes. And I'm sure she's assessing her competition, because some of the people who were on this debate this morning could end up running against you in the future, I'm sure, Grace.
Martina, thank you very, very much for your introduction, and greetings to everyone from the European Parliament in Brussels. I'm sitting at my office now, so that was brilliant. I mean, it was really engaging, brilliant exchange of views. Martina, fair dues, very efficiently run and managed. And teachers, you must be so proud, because I can imagine an enormous amount of work went into the preparation for today. And thanks to everyone who contributed, the ambassadors and all. And then the stars of the show, the students, yourselves. So for me, watching in, the communication skills were excellent. The collaboration amongst yourselves, the negotiating, it's exactly what happens here in the European Parliament, and you can see how challenging it is. And even when we're in these debates on the legislation, with us, we have our phones in our hand, we have our WhatsApp, our Signal, our everything. So, you know, it's a lot of kind of juggling to get as much information as possible in order to get the best legislation through for the European citizens, and in many pieces of legislation for global citizens. And when it comes to climate change and biodiversity decline, it's for the planet itself. So a huge well done to the winning teams, and to Croatia, Greece, and to the Netherlands, Donegal, Naas, and to Tulla and Clare, which is in my constituency. So it's great to see your wonderful achievements. And I also would like to acknowledge those who have brought you all together, and that's the EU Commission and the Parliament representation in Dublin, and representing Ireland. So it's been really good. I wouldn't have liked to be Mary. I wouldn't have liked to be Noel, having to make that judgment, but well done. You've made the call, and it's really been exciting. So the winning teams will receive, each of the members will receive an iPad each, and then the three winning teams, the schools, will receive a MacBook Air for the school. As was said by Martina, normally we would be meeting, or actually it was Noel said, normally we would meet in Dublin Castle. This isn't possible. It shows you the importance of being able to adapt, and we've done that today, and we're all here. Even I'm in Brussels, but we're all here together in our different schools around the country, and nevertheless you've been able to hold an incredible debate. So well done. Enjoy your win. To my mind, everyone's a winner when you participate, because you come to the table and you make that exchange. So well done to everyone. Enjoy your weekend, and I hope at some stage in my mandate, which will end in 2024, and obviously I'll probably go for re-election again, but hopefully we'll see you here in Brussels or in Strasbourg at some stage. So back over to you, Martina, and thank you all very, very much.
And hopefully they'll have the opportunity to do so when travel resumes. And that's a great opportunity for all those schools. Thank you, Grace. And I'm sure that you would also be confident that some of the students that we've heard this morning will end up making their contributions on the floor of the European Parliament as elected MEPs in the future. And we wish you all every success in whatever career that you pursue. And to all the students, just congratulations again on representing your schools today with such professionalism and expertise. And I also want to thank the schools themselves, because particularly your teachers, for making this possible during a pandemic, and the level of organization and choreography that went into today. Special thanks to the judges, Noel and to Mary, who had the most difficult job today and who contribute in a very meaningful and important way in their roles every day at EU level on key issues. And I also want to thank Andy Clume, the European Commission representation in Ireland, and the European Parliament office for hosting this important event, which really helps highlight the role of EU institutions on such important issues such as health, which we can see today. And special thanks in particular to Joan Flanagan for her organisation skills supreme to put this together, and a special mention, it has to be said, to Shane Finnegan for ensuring it ran smoothly online. And it did. And we look forward to next year's event, hopefully in person. And just one, I suppose, closing remark. Best of luck to all of you. You have a voice, use it collectively, use it effectively and constructively, because it can bring about positive change. Thank you and goodbye.